getting back to Walt, though, I'm just saying, like, that would be a great example.
How much of that's
him
still
using.
there? Is the access upstairs still there?
Well, I think that they would need to add a little bit more to they do have a second floor in there. I just don't think it's necessarily big enough, so they would have to do some infrastructural situation
So was it a different
stuff.
second floor in the
In the Disneyland one, it was
in the World's Fair.
It was
in the 64, 65 World's Fair.
Oh, well, the 64 World's Fair, 65 World's Fair, that wasn't even the finale. So you go up the ramp, and then you go inside of the Sky Dome Spectacular, because it was a huge dome shape. They had projections onto the dome, so you would watch this whole dome show, and then you would go down a spiral staircase to watch a nuclear fusion reactor, and then you would go inside of the Medallion City, Homes of the Future, which was this indoor neighborhood where you went and you saw the latest appliances and everything from General Electric, and then you went out.
Sounds like Interventions.
So, yeah, exactly. But and we're only getting like the first half of that now with our carousel.
What's crazy to me though is that was at the 64, 65 World's Fair. I mean, like what you're talking about that's more immersive than Galaxy's Edge. It's like it's real Imagineering, and
yes,
we are so far from it.
50 plus years ago.
But what's crazy is, as a kid, I thought 1964, 65 World's Fair could have been. It might as well have been the 1939 World's Fair, right? And you realize, oh my God, I was so much closer to it as a kid. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, even if you look at the 39 World's Fair, 39 World's Fair is Epcot. It's basically Epcot Center. It has the same. They have a hall of transportation. They have something that deals with agriculture. They have a nighttime show that was coordinated with lights and fountains and fireworks. They have a huge dome that's part of that's the icon of the park. Everything 1939 World's Fair is basically Epcot Center in Art Deco. That's how that goes. So, getting back to the Walt animatronic, the second way that I would only justify him being inside of a part of an attraction as an animatronic, again, a flawless one, like nearly 100% done, so don't screw this up, is the American Adventure. I have thought for a very long time, because originally the American Adventure was supposed to have 3 hosts. It wasn't supposed to be just Benjamin Franklin and Mark Twain. It was also supposed to be a 3rd host. For a little while, they were entertaining the thought of doing it with Walter Cronkite, but he was still relatively new, and he was still active. He went off the air, but no, this is way too new. So then they decided that they would go with Will Rogers, which actually does end up in the show. But then they thought he was even too contemporary for it. So they just decided to do it with the 2 hosts that they have for it. And if you look at the way that the American Adventure is structured and the way that those hosts were chosen, is that they are basically at the forefront of the medium of their time. So Benjamin Franklin, founding father, inventor, publisher, all of these great things. So he's definitely, like, he is a 18th century man, definitely, Renaissance man. Got it. Same thing with Mark Twain. Mark Twain is a satirist, author, a super mega star for his time period, very much of the written word, very much in the industrial age. And then you had the 3rd version, which when they were doing Will Rogers, it's just like, okay, well, yeah, sure, you would want to have somebody that would be like part of the new media. So you would have somebody that would be on the radio, but he didn't obviously pan out with that. And also, there's not that much of the 20th century that they cover in the American Adventure. So if you were ever going to be able to do a new version of the American Adventure, I think that the only logical choice is Walt Disney, because he is the best person to represent the 20th century. And he also, and another thing that goes on with the American Adventure is that and this is absolutely beautiful, Randy Bright, which the wonderful sainted Randy Bright, who was taken from us far too early, he was the script writer for it. He was the entire person who came up with the conceptions of the American Adventure. How that story works is amazing on a couple of different levels. From a technical perspective, you'll notice that they only use oil paintings at the beginning, and then they use photographs, and then they start to use motion pictures on that. So it's always a medium that's of that era. the way that the storyline goes, and this is what sets it apart from the rest of World Showcase, where the rest of World Showcase gets to produce this rather glossy version of themselves, where there are no flaws for France, there are no flaws for Germany, there are no flaws for any of them. American Adventure is extraordinarily modest and extremely earnest. They talk about slavery, they talk about all of these problems that they have with, and the reason, but they only include things which we have learned from. And we haven't learned
That's
from
not true. Elon Musk makes an appearance.
Well, yeah, and don't get me started on him. I really don't need a headache today. I cannot stand that man. If you want to, I know that we talked about this on another episode, so just look at that. Yeah, we're not going to go back in.
But can I just chime in on one thing?
Sure,
because you're taking me inadvertently down memory lane from my when I trained as a tech, and you're talking about like the story and all this stuff. The technical marvel that is underneath that stage. That have you seen it?
I've seen it. I haven't seen it in operation, but I've seen it.
I mean, understand? Have you seen the rig?
Yeah. I know exactly how it works and everything. I never got to see it from the rafters. I really wanted to do that, but I never got to see that.
So, just as a quick story, so we're under the stage, and it's basically like a giant vending machine. Okay, it's a grid of like a drawer system, like a grid of show scenes on platforms that get lifted up through hydraulics. So the entire drawer system can slide under the seating. Okay. So it's like whatever row you need to bring up to the stage. So they're showing us everything. And this is before it got the overhaul. So I saw it in its analog form. And they're telling us after all the safety training how like this is the one attraction that can't be held up to current Disney safety protocols just because of the way it was built, you know. So these guys have to walk across beams and not fall in and get crushed, all these things. Anyway, I tell you this story for one thing and one reason only. So we're standing up on the stage. I'm literally standing on the stage, which is about 6 feet. And then the rest of it, you'll fall right down into the animatronics. So I'm standing up there and I start getting emotional because I'm standing up on the stage of the American Adventure looking down, right? And then one of the guys comes up, one of the guys that works on the show, who's probably as old as Walt Disney, right? Now, mind you, there was only one female in the entire group, and she did not speak a lot of English. She didn't really speak much English. So anyway, you go through traditions, you go through all your Disney training. You're standing up on the stage, and I forget the guy's name. It's probably a good thing that I don't put his name on blast, but he comes up on the stage and he goes, yeah, well, let me tell you something. That Margaret Thatcher animatronic, one day she wouldn't stop talking like a typical woman. I almost shot her. And like, the guy that was like,
I think you mean Susan B. Anthony.
Yeah, sorry, Susan B. Anthony. I said Margaret Thatcher. I knew I was going to get the name wrong. I was trying to make sure I got the joke right.
Yeah,
it was Susan B. Anthony, and he's saying how much I was going to shoot her, and like my eyes first went to my supervisor, who was like, right, and then my eyes went to the woman, to the girl in our group. And I was like, yeah, she didn't understand any of that. And we just all moved on. We all quietly recognized that was not in line with the keys. But I was like, you know what? Like, that guy can say that. Because who the hell else can work on this shit?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I dealt with some older engineer guys who told some off color stuff and everything. So yeah, I definitely understand where you're going with that. So,
but yeah, it's just you made me think. I'm like, this is such a funny story because he's just like, you just go through all of this stuff about courtesy and this, that, and the other, and then this guy just comes up there and it's just like, I'm from a different time.
Yeah, and it's just like a totally different. It's just and it is just from a different time. That's all. That's all that you. And really, you should. Everyone should be accommodating of that. You know, in our extraordinarily high-minded, very much more. Above it all, and very, very, like very enlightened people that we are now. I'm just like, well, you need to be enlightened in reverse too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, it's just like you should be able to accommodate that guy who made that off-color joke.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just saying that just in general because I love being on soapboxes all day. But So back to the animatronic.
Yeah.
The reason why, I beyond the justifications of why I think he should be in there and everything, and the reason why those two are there, is that Walt would never allow himself, because what they do in Disneyland, I do think is enormously disrespectful to his memory, because Walt Disney would never allow himself to talk about himself.
Right.
If you're going to put an animatronic of Walt in that's going to be decent, and I do know that they are working on a better model of it and everything, and they will probably shut down the other one, because what they're going to do, the problem that they have with the ones that are one that it is in Disneyland, the one that they say that looks like Mike Lindell, he is that they needed to stretch the face to meet the electronics and the servos and everything that he has inside of his head, and that's the reason why he looks screwed up. And I know, but still, they say that they're going to get it right this time. Essentially, is that I'm okay
we mean
with
Garner
that.
Holt.
Let's hope so. But that they can do, if they can do that, then that's fine. But if you're going to be having him in the Carousel of Progress, I'm just like, well, that's fine under premise. Maybe not in technology, but under premise.
So
I'm
you
like,
have the intro video.
Then he's talking about it. Yeah.
You know, the intro video,
Yeah.
pre-show, if you will. So I get that. Like, that
Yeah.
makes sense. But that's Walt talking about his vision for something.
Right.
That's supplemental.
Yeah, because Walt is not narcissistic. Walt was never actually narcissistic. Now he was. He
had everyone calling him Uncle Walt. Walt was a narcissist.
I don't agree.
I don't
with
think
that.
he was.
I
don't think he was a modern day narcissist, but I think it takes a certain amount of hubris to be a Walt Disney.
Well, I think that from a psychological perspective, he was enormously controlling, and he was very passionate about his visions, which could be interpreted as narcissistic. But I don't really see it that way. I see it as him wanting to get things right. Rather, it wasn't necessarily about, and this is something that I believe for myself. It's just like, I don't care if it's my way or if it's your way. I care about if it's the best way. And if you want to tell me a different way of doing something, fine. We'll do your thing. But if it's better than what my thing is that I came up with or somebody else's, then fine, we're going to do that. But we're going to make sure that we get it right. And I think that that's the reason why Walt had that. I think that one of his fundamental flaws is that he was horrible to his staff, most of them. He did have some favorites. And we all know those, like it's the 9 old men. The 9 old men, each one of them got paid more than he did. He paid them more than and Lily was really upset about that. And he's just like, look, if I don't have them, then I don't have my animation studio. And do you remember what happened with Oswald and the Luntz thing, the Muntz thing? So he was just very, very controlling. I don't think that he was narcissistic about it, but also, it's him wanting to talk about his vision.
Look, I'm only pushing back because I can.
Yeah.
Not because I want to pick a fight, but like, he changed it from Disney Brothers to the Walt Disney Company.
Right.
He didn't even give Roy a shot at that. He just decided, I'm putting my name on the top. So there's narcissism there. I love Walt Disney. There's narcissism there.
Okay, well that's fine. It's probably narcissism of a different word. Maybe we're not using the words correctly. Maybe we are. I don't know.
I don't know, but I want to argue nuance.
We can go either way with that.
But you need to have a certain level of confidence and hubris and just like, I mean, it's a stubbornness, So I do think it's okay to have a little narcissism, but I think that the thing that maybe doesn't make him like fully like pejoratively narcissistic is the fact that he surrounded himself with people that were smarter than him, paid them more, made sure that he was not the smartest man in the room. He didn't want yes men.
Right. And that goes with something that I've been saying recently. I said on a couple of posts that was on LinkedIn and everything, with Theron Skis, which is a former Imagineer. If anyone, like seriously, if you're on Twitter all day and you're looking at Imagineer content, there are a couple of people that are great and some that are not.
There's one that's really awkward.
Yes, and let's just not talk about him right now
No.
because like we have mutual friends, but people will be able to figure that out.
Just understand
Is
how
that,
the internet works. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, if you really want to have some like really sane content about how themed entertainment and everything is supposed to work, follow Theron Skis on LinkedIn. He's amazing. But in any case, I would. We were talking about like the smartest person in the room. There's a certain rather famous Canadian psychologist who has a wonderful phrase and philosophy about this. It's just like, if you were the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Was that John Candy?
No.
Oh, wrong Canadian philosopher.
Yes, yeah. No, this one's still living. So that's how that
Doing my job.
goes without. Yeah, I understand. It's fine.
Thank you.
But yeah. So I'm like, we'll see how it goes. Like like with the Walt animatronic and with everything that they were doing with him in Disneyland, do not support it at all. But if you're but with this carousel thing, I'm like, if you get it right, I can kind of be on your side.
Yeah, no, I could too.
So,
I could too.
Yeah,
but again,
I'm like,
just what the difference in plussing is.
correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's why when people are like that, they cherry pick what Walt would do. Look, nobody's saying don't change the parks, but make them better. Like again, it goes back to remaking movies. Don't remake a movie if you're not going to elevate the source material. Right.
And typically, I would hope that it would be fun to go to movies that don't have, that did it wrong the first time and just try to make it right with that one. But also, like with the Walt quotes and everything, it's just like, like some of them that absolutely infuriate me. And this is the same thing that you have the problem with, like the Bible and the Torah and everything. It's just like people always take things out of context. Walt said, like the whole entire thing was just like, they said, Walt said that Disneyland was never going to be was not a museum. You know that he said that in 1957. He said that in an article in 1957 because he was proposing to do, get this, Liberty Street in Disneyland because they just released Johnny Tremaine, which is an amazing movie, by the way. He said that then, and because people are just like, well, I don't know about changes to it. And of course, even if you look beyond those specifics about it, I mean, you're talking about a park who's two years old. Of course, you're going to. Of course, it's not going to be a museum. Then he's got lots of plans. He's got lots of land. We're going to make changes. But when you get past your 40s and your 50s. There's a legacy there. There's something that you have to protect. It does become no, because he wasn't there yet. But it's just like, yeah, it would be a museum today. It should be a museum today. It should be what it is. Like Tyler Dean said. Tyler Dean said this, and I thought this was a great articulation. Just like, why is that a bad thing? It's a museum with rides.
It can be both. But like,
it's this thing.
Main Street sort of functions as that museum in many ways. So yeah, the rides can change, but I think that if the essence, which really is Americana, if that through line can stay, then that is sort of the museum. That is the past. I mean, you walk through the archway, it's supposed to be the past, the present, and the future. But if it's just present and future, then
there is no past. It's enter the days of yesterday, tomorrow, and
I'm paraphrasing. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I do. Okay.
But that's an important distinction because there is no present inside of the Magic Kingdom, and they are injecting present into it
today. Not present.
There is no such thing as today, and that's what it is. You leave today.
Wait. So what is the proper phrase? I'll be right back. I'll go look.
Here you leave today and enter the worlds of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. I think that's how it is.
Something like
that's the order. So yeah, but yeah. So there's no today in there. You leave today, which is the reason why you don't incorporate Pixar inside of the parks, because Pixar is entirely of today. There's not a single historical thing that they've done.
No, but you could argue Pixar is from the future. I mean, you could Toys Come to Life and Incredibles. I mean, if you really wanted to lean into that, you could lump them in. Look, it's not all going to be perfect because it outgrew Walt and it outgrew. Several generations beyond that, to the point that now, again, it's a company coasting on goodwill, and you have leaders who, to kind of repurpose what you said earlier, they're looking at what they can squeeze out of it before they bounce. They're not really concerned about what happens once they're gone.
Yeah.
I do want to, real quick, and then I want to do a speed round of politics, and we'll get out of here.
Sure. Yeah.
Two-parter, quick Disney last question, because you just mentioned what was it going to be called in Disneyland? Liberty. It wasn't Liberty Square.
Liberty Street. It was Liberty Street.
Was that part of Edison Square?
No, those were two separate ones. So so you would go into the center street, of Main Street. They were both going to be on the right-hand side, so on the Tomorrowland side. The first one that you were going to go up to was going to be Liberty Street, which was a replacement of International Street. And then and then when you went to the center street, then it was going to be Edison Square.
And was it harnessing the lightning, harnessing the energy? What was it called?
Yeah, harnessing lightning, I think is what it was. Yeah. And it was really like it was a lower tech version of the Carousel of Progress, and you actually would stand in a grandstand, and then you would go to the next scene and everything. There's actually a really amazing piece of artwork that people think is for the last act of the Carousel of Progress, but it's actually for that original Edison Square. And if you look at that artwork and everything, which was done by John Hench, he basically creates all of Googie architecture like 10 years before it actually existed, which was an amazingly prophetic piece and everything. And it has like flat panel screens that wrap around and everything. It's an amazing piece of artwork.
Like, why can't you build Edison Square? How cool would that be?
Yeah, exactly. It would be. But you can do like a version of that, but also it would be like low occupancy and everything for it right now. So it was better that it became Carousel of Progress.
Like a modern day executive.
No. I try to look at things like I want to get the most people in. I want to get the most people to enjoy it.
Harnessing the Lightning McQueen. Problem solved. Thank you.
Oh, God. Well, there you go.
So my last Disney question, we'll move into politics before I send you off into a tailspin. What the hell was with Walt Disney writing Kurt Russell as his last words and also spelling it wrong? I mean, this is one of your leading stars. You don't know how to spell his name. But moreover, Walt Disney's last words are Kurt Russell? Why?
Well, he was the fresh up and coming star. I mean, he was at the time. He was his latest contract player. And you know, he was part of the child group essentially, even though I think he was a teenager by then. Yeah. But still, you know, Walt spent his last seconds trying to do as much as possible to get the studio set up for the future.
Do you think he was trying to get a deal done, or giving someone a directive to cast?
Yeah, exactly. He was just like he was probably saying it's just like he was probably saying, hey, you know that movie that we're going to do? Kirk Russell should be the star of that.
And then he spelled his name wrong, but I got to attribute that to I'm dying. I'm not going to spell
exactly. Right. Yeah, like the day before he was dying, you know, it's just like the famous story of him looking at the tile grid in his ceiling and planning out where Walt Disney World was going to be and everything. So he was trying to do all of his things all the way through that, and you know, the thing that always gets me about it too is just like when you're looking at the trajectory of the company now and how it's been so far removed. I did a post recently where I said something that I've been thinking for a very, very long time right now. It's just like Walt Disney did not die in 1966. He didn't die in 1966. His spirit, his objectives, his projects carried the company for the next 20 years. And then after that 20 years, Michael Eisner picked up the mantle and took the Walt Disney ethos in every single thing that he did into a greater plateau, as any good steward would be. And Bob Iger has spent his entire tenure dismantling that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. The line in the sand, in my opinion, is the death of Frank Wells. Because that shut down the creative engine in Michael Eisner, and that made him stick to the finance side of the company because he didn't have a counterbalance.
So I've recently been looking into that as well lately, and I don't think that we've got the history. I don't think that we've got that precisely defined yet. because if you look at the way in which I was looking at a documentary about this on YouTube that called good God, what was it? Kings of the Kingdom, I think is what it was, and everything. It's all about the succession plan going from Ron Miller all the way up until Iger, and and so and it's done. This whole entire series is done with a bent against Eisner slightly. And I can tell that, you tell the context of it and everything, but I'm looking at him just like, okay, wait a minute. And this is, again, taking somebody work that I'm interpreting it differently than he is, even though he's presenting it in a different way.
That's fair.
I'm like, so it wasn't that Frank Wells was the magic of that formula. It was really what it was is that he was Michael's protection.
Correct.
Because Michael was the creative force for that. And when he lost his protection, the wolves came out.
That's correct.
And it was just like, hey, like after Lion King comes out, and Lion King Lion King was as much a curse for Disney as it was a blessing.
Yeah, but he was Frank Wells was also Eisner's protection from Eisner. Frank Wells gave Eisner the ability to walk into a meeting and say whatever he wanted to, and then only quietly behind closed doors would give him the reality check and allow him to go recalibrate without being publicly shamed. He protected him. They were like a married couple.
Yeah, yeah.
And as soon as he passed, you just nailed it again. The wolves came out. And the best example I have of that is at Frank Wells' funeral. Jeffrey Katzenberg walks up to Michael Eisner at the funeral and asks for Frank Wells' job.
He's such a horrible man.
Oh,
he's still a horrible man.
Still horrible.
God. Like, no, I watched because this is really weird when because I have several worlds that I'm in. Most of the time they never intersect. This was weird because Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom, he interviews Katzenberg and his current creative guy that's with him and everything, and he starts it off, and I can't remember what it was, but he misquotes Walt Disney on something. And I'm just like, my good God, still, all this time later, you have not learned a thing, and you're still misquoting Walt, and you're still screwing over the company and everything else.
Katzenberg and Eisner had very similar upbringings in the sense of they didn't know what they were going to be, right? And they had a lot of pressure on them. And Katzenberg had no understanding of animation. Katzenberg comes in, and animators at Disney are like fearing this guy because they're like, this guy's going to come in, he's going to ruin everything. They wound up loving him. But he came in, and I think it was during The Little Mermaid, and he goes, show me your outtakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're like, this animation, idiot.
It was for because he was it was for Black Cauldron.
Oh, it was Cauldron.
Black Cauldron, and he's just like, well, show me your outtakes, and then they said, yeah, we're going to have to edit this part out. It's just like, and with animation, because it's such an expensive procedure and everything, they edit at the beginning with the boards, and then they go through the thing. And it's just like, we can't edit this; it costs too much money. He's just like, I'll show you how to edit it, and then he goes in there and he actually just snips out the nearly R-rated parts of Black Cauldron. Just like, there you go. That's how you edit.
No, but he redefined the animation workflow. I mean, he literally came in there. So he did have the ability to innovate. Like, he is because I think sometimes executives they do get locked up into the whole like, oh, you're an executive, you're a bean counter, whatever. There are creative executives. So he did have the ability. He did contribute to the Renaissance era.
Right.
Okay. But it was, again, I think it was when Frank was around, it kept everybody at bay because Frank was the adult. Eisner was the kid in the candy store. And then boom, Frank Wells. And the irony of all of that is Frank Wells was much more of a wild guy than Michael Eisner ever was. Michael Eisner was the suit and tie, go to my kid's hockey game. And it was Wells who was out there climbing mountains. But in the company, they had completely opposite roles.
Yes.
Which is wild to think about. See, I love this shit. So then for Katzenberg to walk in there and be the first wolf, the body is still warm, so he's gone. Mm-hmm. Then Michael Eisner is searching for a solution.
And keep in mind too, Katzenberg leaves, and he does not leave quietly.
Well, no,
he goes out with absolute vengeance with his lawsuit and everything else that he was going on with it. And he has enormous, and during the time that he was at Disney, he must have accumulated enormous political power within Hollywood,
right. And he
the entire way through. Like him not getting Frank's job was like, yeah, okay, fine, then I'm out for blood. I will take you out.
And literally,
Michael.
because it was then he went crying with his tail between his legs to David Geffen, and took David Geffen's money with Spielberg and formed SKG. And it was the first new studio in town in probably several decades, if not since the 60s. I don't know the exact timeline. So, yeah, he was out for blood. But it was only because of David Geffen that he survived beyond the death of Frank Wells. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of fascinating because I'm just responding to what you were saying about like the whole, you were researching into Wells and trying to figure out, was Wells the creative engine, the secret sauce, or was he just the protector? And I've always felt that Wells was, and I don't mean to demean his efforts.
Right, yeah.
But Wells was simply Michael Eisner's protection.
Right, yeah. It's a horrible loaded word. Just is such a weird word today because it's just like you just did that, or just
right.
It's weird because it's so like in I've tried many times to look for synonyms and it just doesn't work. But yeah,
he wasn't just he was his sole protector, and then Eisner in his desperation goes out and gets Ovitz, thinking Michael
did not go well.
$100 million later, hello.
Right.
Michael Ovitz, the ultimate snake oil salesman in Hollywood. So really, to go back to my point before I went on this tangent, the death of Frank Wells is the end of Walt's legacy as it pertains to the company.
Correct. Yeah.
You know?
I can support that.
Well, all right. Well, even if you can't, we're going to move on. You don't have to agree.
Okay, fine. Yeah, all right.
You don't have to agree. Let's just do a quick speed round on politics because I could keep going down the Disney rabbit hole all day long because I could. What is that noise? Do you hear that?
I have no idea.
It sounds like an ocean. I don't know.
Well, I don't have an ocean. They're watching a movie in the other room.
I don't know.
But, yeah, so.
It seems to fade and then it goes away. Whatever. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. So China.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to let you choose. China, the National Guard, and President J.D. Vance.
What about China?
Well, so you obviously, all jokes aside, recognize that China's destroying us, right? I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship, but they are still destroying us.
Yeah, so they it's interesting because they're it seems like that right now, but we will ultimately be, it's weird to think about it this way because we will you can't say victorious because there's no such thing as winning in this situation. There's only like ascending and descending. But their birth rates, the way that their political structure is, the way that their economy works and everything, it's not. They are in far worse trouble than we are. So yeah, they have our number right now, but they won't have it for much longer. And when they do collapse, it's actually going to probably hurt us more than it will hurt them because of the way that our manufacturing system works and everything. I watched a really amazing interview, and I really wish I could remember the guy's name, but it was on Barry Weiss's The Free Press, where it was talking about the relationship between Apple and China. And before I watched this, I was totally like, we need to get rid of this. We need to go ahead and we need to overtake them. We need to do very, very, very extraordinarily right-wing stuff. But then I listened to this, and the way that he was talking about it, and the way that their structure is, and the way that their manufacturing systems are, and all the infrastructure that's involved with all of these things, I'm like, yeah, we're never going to get rid of them. We are always going to be in a symbiotic relationship with China. We're just going to have to learn how to deal with it, and we're going to have to learn how to get coexist peacefully with each other, which can be done. I know that I don't agree with any of their authoritarian ways. I don't agree with their treatment of IP and the way that all of our technologies are that they constantly rip off of us. But at the same time, what we get just as much from them as they take from us.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, I mean, just the amount of goods that we import.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to have to become a little bit more comfortable with doing that. I mean, we're never going to decouple from them, because our manufacturing, even if you went to full automation, it wouldn't actually work, because there's certain economies of scale that are just not going to pan out for it. You're not going to be able to get them as low cost as you can possibly get with them. And also, here's the thing, though, too. When people say that, it's just like, China's going to own us, and it's just like. What does owning us actually mean?
I have such a hard time with that comment.
Because I'm like, okay, so fine, they own our debt, mm-hmm. but they can't really call it in, because if they call in our debt, because people think, okay, yeah, they can call in the debt, and then we're all down. And I'm like, but if they call in the debt, then then we can't actually buy the stuff that they're making anymore.
But they're not the only ones we have debt with.
Right, correct. Yes. So there's that part of the owning part, and the other part is just I'm like, well, we have a constitution, we have the greatest military in the world, we have all of these things. I'm like, even if we are owned by China, we're still going to be a free nation.
Right, but so what I'm hearing from you is,
what are we actually losing here? I'm genuinely asking that.
No, I know, but it sounds to me like you don't buy into the idea that we're in any sort of real war with China, that it is a symbiotic relationship that we have to learn to grapple with.
Right, we are, and look, I am too. I don't agree with most of their practices. I can't stand all of this stuff. But the fact remains is that we are still part of a global enterprise. We still we are not we can't be extraordinarily isolationist. Now, if you want to move things over here, if you want to get medications, if you want to get certain essential equipment and everything, if you want to figure out how to do those things, that's fine. But if you're talking about widgets or furniture
they have that a lot.
Or anything
like 50 years ahead of us.
Yeah, so I'm like, just go ahead, just leave it there. It's okay if they make the stuff for us that we're going to buy, because we all need to be able to, because think about what it would mean for either one of us to really lose, to be crippled by the other. That's horrible for everyone.
Well,
that doesn't benefit anybody. Yeah, so it's just like this is not. It's the difference between, this is a Simon Sinek concept, is finite games versus infinite games. We're in an infinite game with China. We're in an infinite game with Russia. Yeah. We're in an infinite game with every single thing else. And all we're looking for just a better margin. We're looking for a more even playing field. But we're not. We should never be for the destruction of one at the ascendance of the other, because that never works.
Because if one goes down, we all go down.
Yeah, exactly.
Hence the nuclear
so, and I'm not even a globalist. I hate globalism.
What does that even mean anymore? I mean, you live in a global economy. You are a globalist by definition, because you have to be, right?
Under a certain point, yeah, exactly. I just the only distinction that I make is I'm like, fine, if we're going to talk about globalist as in from an economy perspective, from a trade perspective, okay. But if we're talking about it from a societal, social thing, then I'm out.
But what does that mean from a societal perspective? Help me understand that.
So that would mean that, okay, so if you had if China was truly the most ascendant one and everything, then their political structure would take hold in our space, where we would not have the freedom of speech. We would not be able to have the Second Amendment.
If they were truly dominant.
if they were truly dominating, because it's just like, we don't appreciate how you are that you're able to talk about everything, and this is causing problems. So I'm like, as long as this is just about us doing trade and economics, I'm fine. But if it has anything to do with societal or social measures, no, we're not doing that. And even social members like controlling the food supply or something of that nature, I'm like, no, we're not doing that either.
So you must be against nation building when it comes to us going into other countries.
Right, of course, no.
Well,
You mentioned President Vance on there. J.D. Vance is fine. I'm okay with him. He is by far not my first choice for Trump's successor, and he is not the heir apparent at this moment, because Trump is doing right now subversively, underneath the current and everything, he is running his final season of The Apprentice, because it is J.D. Vance, it's Ron DeSantis, it's Marco Rubio, and then there is my wonderful goddess,
Pam Bondi,
the Gabbard.
Oh.
No.
That's right. You like her. You like her because she looks like she's like an X-Men or something. You like her.
Well,
like
yes, she yes, I love the gray streak and everything. But look, her attractiveness is merely a byproduct that I've learned to live with.
She's not even that attractive.
No, she's
listen. I'm not going to get because
okay, fine. We're not going to get into the hotness of it.
The other day in the cabinet meeting, like Trump was basically like talking about how gorgeous Pam Bondi was, and like.
Well, here's the thing, though. I used to think, I'm like, okay, fine, she's okay. But then when I found out that she's 60 years old,
no, she looks great for her age.
I'm like, God, you're kind of hot now.
No, she's, well, but it's just more of the fact that, like, in any other environment, like that's an HR nightmare, and like the president sitting across from you at a cabinet meeting, he's like, I don't think Pam's kind of hot. Like, oh, what is it? Like, this really is the final season of The Apprentice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also like, if you wanted to get like even more broad about it, I'm like, it's in an HR way, in an HR world, which I absolutely hate that anyway. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely wrong. I'm like, you do realize that if someone calls another person, just calls them, don't hits on them, don't does anything else. If I say, hey, you're really hot.
Thank you.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, I took it as such.
Thank you.
Yeah, but now in this world, it's litigious.
Yeah.
All right, help me understand this, though, going back to China real quick, because this is something that irks the crap out of me. So you talk about China debt, and I'm the first one that goes, China owns us because we're in so much debt to China. But the QIA is heavily invested in this country. That's the Qatari. What
are you talking about, like the BRICS thing?
No, the QIA is the Qatari Investment Authority. Is that what it's called?
Okay.
They're a sovereign wealth fund. Okay. So here's what I'm getting at. Yes, China lends us money, but they're not the only one. The QIA, the Qataris, are heavily invested in our country. They're invested in the Chernin Group, which is invested in Spotify. They're just invested all over the place. Real estate, everywhere. So on one end, we're borrowing money, right? Borrowing or receiving investments. You could call those the same thing, right? Would you agree?
Yeah,
different structures, but whether you're investing or you're lending, you're still giving me money to play with.
Correct, yeah.
Then we're taking that money and we're going over to China with it, and we're using it to manufacture goods in China.
Right.
Is that not a Ponzi scheme? Because at some point, that whole thing has to keep moving. We're taking borrowed money to go finance products to put back into our economy. And I look at that and I go, is that not the ultimate Ponzi scheme? Like, if any side of that equation breaks, doesn't the whole house of cards come crumbling down?
It would, but I don't see how that would possibly be able to break.
I don't know,
because we're still going to need stuff, and there's still going to be, because I don't. So when you're dealing with it so far as a Ponzi scheme, is that eventually, it becomes unsustainable.
Right.
So that I think that's one of the key features for a Ponzi scheme, and I don't see that what you've just described is a Ponzi scheme. Let me ask because
you,
are
we out leveraged at that point then? And in other words, when does that become problematic? Because to me, that doesn't sound right. If I said to you, lend me some money.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to China and I'm going to go pay them to manufacture goods.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just seems to me like it's a loop. Maybe I'm getting it
Right.
wrong right now, but it seems to me like there's some loop there.
Mm-hmm.
That means that basically like our country's wealth is built off of OPM. And that we are not the most wealthy country because we're using borrowed money. And then we're using that borrowed money to fund manufacturing.
Well, I wonder. So if you're talking about like the most wealthy country, I don't think it's necessarily just the figures on the bank account. I also think it's the way in which we consume goods and services. It's just it's basically like like we're the ones that are willing to foot the bill for a lot of things. We're the ones that are the biggest consumers for a lot of nations. So you say, okay, yeah, we might not be the best on the books, but we're the best at generating wealth. So we're the best country that can generate wealth and generate it out of nothing.
But are we generating it, or are we just taking investments from other people? That's what I'm trying to figure out. It just seems weird to me. It's okay. So if we're giving money to if we're in debt to China and then giving money back to China, that's already a hellish loop, right?
Yeah.
But then you add in just other countries and you like all this money coming in and all this money going out, and you go, well, where's our wealth? In other words, we are the country's heavily in debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're borrowing, right? And then we're taking borrowed money and we're spending and we're putting it into the pipeline. And I just go, and to your point of like when would it actually catch up? Like where would you actually hit that ceiling? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems to me that the entire thing is a house of cards. Maybe that's just what the economy is one big house of cards, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just it. And we just have to accept that at the end of the day, everything is built off of debt.
Well, you have to, I think that, excuse me, Dave Ramsey, but debt is not 100% evil. It's just, you have to be able to have some amount of investment. You have to have some sort of risk that's involved with being able to invest in something with a business enterprise or anything else that you're going with it. So yeah, you're going to have some debt, and that's okay to have. It's not, you don't actually want to get to zero debt. It's like the whole entire thing with like oil prices. That they figured out that the happy medium is like $68 a barrel or something of that nature. Is that, and you would think, it's just like, no, let's bring it down to $1. Let's bring it to like, well, no, the whole entire thing crashes, and then we have enormous problems inside of our economy. So it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, you want to have you don't want to have too much or too little of the debt that's associated with it. So I think that that's one of the things that they're trying to do. With the current administration, what Trump is banking on is that, in order to, he wants to grow the economy to a point where the growth outpaces the debt. And I'm thinking like that could possibly work. I'm not 100% sold on it.
How does that work if China's stealing our IP?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where I'm going with it. Like, so you have this whole sort of loop, and we have debt. We're just growing the debt, and we don't have any, in theory, aside from what you're selling, you don't have any tangible assets, right? You don't have any IP, so you're not creating any value.
Right.
So are we just completely over leveraged? And then I guess I'm just asking you the question you asked me back to you again. But if that is the case, how or when does it all come crashing down?
You're still going to need stuff,
right?
They're going to still need to make stuff. So
but you don't want China to lose. China losing is when it all comes crashing down. America losing, it goes back to the symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. So I don't. So I would say the answer is never. The answer, I mean, will there be hardship of some sort on one way or the other? Yeah, sure. So, at some point, but does it ever crash? No, it never. I don't see that how it could possibly crash. Also, it's just like the way that we have with our American mentality and everything. It's just like we don't tolerate that much pain. We just don't tolerate it. We will do whatever we possibly can do to avoid the pain and suffering.
The Chinese will
as
take
much
the
as
pain
possible.
all day long. They are a stubborn culture.
They will,
and I mean that, and I mean that in a complimentary way.
Yeah.
So we got to do something about the IP protection. I guess that's where I'll end that point. Then is like, if it's really meant to be symbiotic, if we're truly not in competition, and prior to this conversation, I would have always said, no, we're in competition with China and we have to win. We're losing. We have to win. But where we're definitively losing is in the fact that every time we go to them with any bit of intellectual property to manufacture something, to manufacture goods, they're ripping it off and putting it on AliExpress right away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
that's a huge problem. That is a legitimate problem that needs to be solved.
Correct. And again, you're borrowing from the enemy. And if you're not borrowing money from the enemy and giving it right back to them, you're borrowing it from someone else and giving it to the enemy. So we're funding the enemy.
Right.
It's just a wild loop. And I'm sitting here saying it all to you, and I'm going, I don't even think I'm vocalizing it right. But like, even so, I mean, you see what I'm saying, right? You see how murky it is. It's problematic.
Yeah.
And then the whole AI race makes it a smokescreen.
Yeah, just like I've had like a lot of thoughts about that, because as a futurist, I study AI intensively, and like almost everyone gets it wrong.
Well,
so they really just don't. People have even the most intelligent people do not get it right. I mean, I love, it's just like, of course, I'm conservative and everything, so I listen to Glenn Beck, and Glenn Beck is totally Chicken Little with AI right now.
Is he crying?
And I'm just like, not yet, but he can get there. And I understand what you mean.
Hey, listen, man. I remember Glenn Beck. Yeah. A lot of people don't know this either. And by the way, that's like my most common phrase. A lot of people don't know, but it's true, because a lot of people don't know a lot of things. Glenn Beck was a top 40 radio DJ. Then he went over to CNN. Was. I remember watching on CNN back in the day, and he's been doing the crying thing for as long as I can remember. God bless.
Yeah. Well, he's very emotional. And you know what? With the whole entire Save Magic Kingdom thing, I was like 1 degree away from him, and I was trying to get him involved, and I couldn't get him involved because no one could get in touch with him. Apparently, he very much. It's very hard to get inside of his inner circle, because he is a huge Disney fan, and he very much is a passionate Walt Disney fan. I'm just like, this would be perfect if he would just cover it, but he didn't. But anyway, back to the AI
This
thing.
Is Steve. This is Steve.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So because we're done with the Disney part. Most people, for one thing, there are two. So most people know about one paradox is associated with AI and not the other one. And there's actually 2 of them. Most people know about one, but never the other. There's one paradox on there, and this is going to sound icky, but whatever. It's what I've called the digital incest problem, which is the more that you use the AI models, the less effective they become, because they require, as part of the large language model basis, they require genuine human input in order for them to work. And the more that you put artificial stuff in there, the more inbreeding it becomes, and the more deformed your outputs come out. That's the reason why I call it digital incest. Or maybe AI incest would probably be a better term for that. But
I think it's more like feedback, but I get it.
Yeah, feedback. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, that sounds a little bit more G-rated.
Yeah, incest. Just like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Especially with
trying to go for like a really
advent of robots and AI, you could have a whole different connotation by next week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we don't want to go there.
Aren't you the futurist?
Yeah. So yeah, true. Yeah. So that's one of them. The other one I just recently found out is that the more that you use AI, and the more that you outsource your labor to AI, the less people that you have inside of your economic system that will be able to afford whatever it is that you're making.
How does that work?
So, and this is actually happening right now, is that you have companies that are systematically, very quietly laying off people left and right. 10,000 here, 10,000 here, 20,000, nothing 100,000, nothing that makes anybody truly nervous. And they're doing that because they're trying to replace people with the AI systems, which is leading to employment problems. And when you have the employment problems that we're having, then you get to a point where you have an AI factory that's making all of your flat panel television screens, but you had no one to sell it to because everyone else was firing their other people, so everyone's too poor to afford them. And you extrapolate that out into every single business unit. That's the problem with it, is because it creates a negative feedback loop or positive in this situation.
I don't know I don't know how much I can buy into that because there's so many people that don't want to work.
Well, yeah, there's certain people that don't want to work, but there's a lot of people that were working and then they got laid off because of the system. My problem with it is just like, okay, look, I use AI systems all day long. I use it for video, I use it for audio, I use it for every single thing. I'm totally fine with it as a tool. My problem with it is that the people that are in charge, the HR people, the executives, the people who know nothing about any technology except for maybe how to use email or Twitter. They see it and they're just like, oh, wait a minute, this increases our efficiency by 40%. That means we can get rid of 40% of our people.
Short term versus long term.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then that means we can get rid of 40% of the people. I'm like, no, that means that you can go to 140% and just keep the people that you have, train them on the AI system.
Right, so you can actually accelerate, not not just have what you have and then just be able to reduce your cost. And it's just like if you reduce the cost, then you're assured that you're only going to get that. Also, most of the people are doing this with an enormous amount of confidence because look, it is just a tool. It can't replace. It's almost very young.
It can't replace it. Yes, it's very young. And also there's the energy consumption problems that they're having with it as well, because the postulation that they're having right now that they're going to need in the next 5 years, they're going to need all the energy that we are currently manufacturing times 2 in order to run these render farms. I'm like, I'm out. This is stupid. This is dumb.
By the way, that's not even necessarily true.
That's what they're saying.
I know, but they're just hypothesizing. Yeah. And also, as the technology gets refined, there's ways. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but I don't even want to get into the weeds on water and all of that. I knew an engineer guy years ago that had a very rudimentary invention. Really weird son of a bitch. Smart guy though. And he was pulling water out of the atmosphere, which is not a new idea. It's condensation. Okay. But he was like, I'm just going to generate my own water. And I'm like, why aren't other people doing this? It's no different than the dehumidifier in my garage, the reservoir fills up. And I'm looking at a guy like that and I'm like, because this must have been 10 years ago. I'm like, dude, you are so ahead of your time. You are so ahead of your time. Because at some point, we will start harvesting water. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a scientist, so I don't know where that maxes out. I don't know if that's an infinite loop or if at some point, I don't know. So I don't know how that, look, there's smarter people for that. But this idea that we can't use AI because it's going to take all of our water, or that we should be limiting our AI use because water, we never cared about water usage before.
Well, also they don't need they don't need the freshwater supply.
Correct.
They can use the salinated one as well. So that's a ridiculous notion. But also the power consumption situation and everything. But the thing that it really just kind of gets me on that is just you look. This has got to be this is only going to be a tool for people, and it's only going to be a specialized tool for it. I'm just like, for anybody who says just like, oh yeah, the sky is falling about this and everything. This is the reason why I did an article like a year and a half ago now, about it, which went real over, which didn't go over at all on any platform except for LinkedIn. Is that I termed it as AI is the counting horse of the 21st century. Because people think that people think that they're going to get to generalized AI. They're not. You know, and you know, it was classic talking about the Glenn Beck thing. You know, he recently interviewed Adam Curry, you know, the original, the podcaster now, but he was originally like the founding DJ for VJ for MTV and everything. Very, very intellectually stimulating guy nowadays. Glenn Beck, who has been, you know, like decrying the doom and gloom of AI and everything, he asks Adam Curry on this show, and he's just like, "What do you think about it?" He's just like, "Oh, it's worthless. It's worthless. I use it every day." I'm like, we have to finesse the system so many times. It's never going to replace anything. It's not going to do. Is it? It was so funny though, because I'm a student of like micro expressions and everything. You see Glenn on that say, because normally, you know, like it's his long form podcast, so it's just like, and then he gets this look on his face, just like totally deadpan. It's just like, oh yeah, it's a piece of trash. It's worthless. Never going. So let me talk about this other thing. Just like, it was like, wow. I'm just like, I looked at that and just like, I just died laughing because I knew what was going on in his brain. It's just like, that thing that I've been yelling and screaming about, you're saying is not going to be an issue at all? Mm-hmm. Yeah, not going to be an issue.
He's saying it's not going to be an issue at all. He's not saying it's worthless. He's saying it's worthless in a tongue-in-cheek way. Yeah,
exactly. Well, I mean, and here's the thing though. Okay, so and also, like, if you look at like what Justine Bateman has been saying about Hollywood in regards to like the creative thing, she is extraordinarily intelligent and articulate about this stuff. Also, like Simon Sinek and other people have been saying, you know, it's just like, okay, but oh no, they're going to be able to create a digital version of me off of all of my writings and everything.
No. Well, yes and no.
Simon Sinek said, you know, it's just like, well, all you're going to have is my past thoughts, not my present thoughts, not my future thoughts.
That's the recursive loop, though. So what's going to happen is as we feed more AI. So what we're doing right now with all this engagement with AI is we're giving it prior art. We're feeding art into the machine so that next year, the year after, and down the line, it can continue to generate. But we're feeding it, you know, it has source material, but we're feeding new stuff into it. So right now, we're still giving it data to pull from. I generated something, was it yesterday? And half of the video revealed the source that it was referencing, like it glitched. And I took the image out of it and I like reverse searched it in Google to see what it was. And it claimed to be some like German cartoon character. But I was like, oh, you're so janky. You generated the source material, you know? So I love AI. I think there's pluses and there's minuses. And when you look at it as assistive tech and not replacement tech, then there's a benefit there. But I think it's going to create a massive gap. There's going to be a lot of people that know how to use it, and there's going to be a lot of people that fear it and are left behind. And that's going to be the gap. And there's going to be a lot of folks that figure out, oh, okay, yeah, it's not perfect. Maybe it's 70%. But if I can use this one and that one and the other one and combine all these AI tools together, now I can get to 140%.
Yeah. Yeah, and with my own personal way that I work with these things and everything, I as a futurist I try to stay ahead of the curve, but as a designer, I want to be a little bit behind the curve, because when you're dealing with these AI systems and everything, like I feel fortunate, like my followers on Epcot Legacy and everything, a couple of them are just like, you know, I really hate all this AI stuff, but I trust you when you do it, because I'm like, well, that's because I only accept the best outcomes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, well, that looks kind of okay. I'm like, no, this has to be perfect upscaling, or I just reject it. I just don't do it. Like, oh, you're not there yet. I'll come back in like 6 months from now, which I've done on several occasions. Like, I'll come back in 6 months and see if you've worked out the kinks on this. Like with the learning
It's
models
amazing.
and everything
In the
else.
last 6 months, though, I've seen just the way that it has improved just in a few months of using it, because I got deep into it in the new year. What are you using, real quick? And then I have 2 more questions, and we'll get out of here. But what?
Sure, yeah.
Give me the rundown of what applications you're using.
So I use so for visuals, I use like several online platforms for upscaling and for enhancing. Many of them are the most popular ones right now. For audio, I use.
What do you use for upscaling? I'm particularly curious about that.
So there's 2 of them. I'd have to. One of them is Remy. Which is a really cool one. They do a really good job, especially like with portraits. I recently reopened my E82 Institute section of the Epcot Legacy site, and I had a low resolution version of a Ray Bradbury image that he was in front of the 1978 model. Actually a picture of an aerial picture of the 1978 version of Epcot. And what I did is I took him and I upscaled him in the Remy online support, and then I just rotoscoped him out, and then I put him onto the source art that I already had and everything. Really, really sharp, really well done. But still, though, I did it, and there were still flaws in it. There was still like his collar wasn't as black as it needed to be, so I'm fixing that. Every single thing that I do with this, and this is something that I say at infinitum, and I get tired of myself saying this. I'm just like, oh yeah, I used an AI program for this and everything, but keep in mind that's only part of the whole entire thing. I have to do a lot of work beforehand, a lot of work afterwards.
It's a system. You didn't just put in a prompt and get something out of it and then upload it and call it.
Yeah. Right. And also I'm also with my work, I have to deal with like just of the nature, not because it's just me and I'm a perfectionist or anything, but like I'm dealing with historical data.
Right.
I have to make sure that these things are historically accurate.
Sure.
So I can't cut corners. I'm like, oh, that could possibly work there. Like, no, you have to get it 100% right, or else I'm going to throw it out and we'll just reassess this later. So I do that with that. Also with audio, I'm having enormous fun with the AI separation models, where you can take out the vocals and leave the instrumentation. Sometimes they have where you can segment it off of the different instrument groups and how they were able to do that. I'm one of my albums that I completed earlier in the year. It's going to be coming out next month. Wait a minute. Well, October 1st, whatever. Is I did for E82, I did what I'm calling the official instrumental album of Epcot Center, where I took all of the classic Epcot Center songs that were there, like in those the wonderful record and everything else, the standards and everything. I've taken out all of the vocals from it, did fully instrumental versions, and you still have to go in there because those things are EQ and those things are measured out for the vocals. So I have to counteract the audio ducking, where it goes down when a speaker goes on this. I know that you know this, but maybe somebody on the show doesn't know. So I'm having to adjust for that. I'm having to amp things up a little bit so that you don't notice the absence of it from a technical perspective.
What are you doing your audio editing in?
Well, I do everything in Audition.
That's what I thought.
So
okay.
Audition is I only use Adobe products most of the time.
I love my Adobe.
Yeah, and I know that people are just like, oh no, you're cutting a business model. I'm like, it's the name of the game, people. This is the game that we play.
What's the complaint?
This is the game.
What are these people on the internet complaining about?
They're complaining about the subscription fees. They're complaining about all this. Yeah, I'm just like, well, look, okay, like mine, I don't know how it is with other people, but mine is like less than $40 a month.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I make a lot more than 40. I mean, and I don't make that much right now, but I'm like, even I, at my very low income state,
you need it.
I'm like, yeah, without this $40, I can't make the amount that I'm going to do with it.
Has a cost.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I just really quick on the Adobe thing, like. Mm-hmm. I have a computer upstairs with like 5, I think, like Premiere, Character Animator, Firefly, and something else. I have like four Adobe things, Photoshop, like all open at the same time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was in California. I had another iMac out there. And I literally I took it on the airplane with me. I've never traveled with an iMac on an airplane. I got a case, like a bag for it. It fit in the overhead. And I'm like, this is my Adobe machine. Like, I brought this back because I needed this machine to do certain things. And I needed just an Adobe machine. And yeah, $40, $50 a month. I think it's $50 I'm paying to be able to edit something in Photoshop, click save, and have it immediately populate in my character animator, like instantly, not close, refresh, open. Like, it's like live editing. To be able to jump between those, you show me where else I'm going to do that. Would I prefer to own the program? Sure. But
oh yeah, I was dragged kicking and screaming into the cloud because I owned like the CS6 up until like a year and a half ago when my computer just so what was the impotence for it is that I use Google Drive for all of my backup, and Google Drive was no longer going to be compatible with the OS for Mac, and I knew that if I ever upgraded from the one that I was doing, I was going to lose the CS6, so I was holding on to it for dear life. But I'm like, I need to have my backup, especially because I have an enormous online digital archive that's actually worth tens of millions of dollars, although I cannot ever sell it for that. But it really is. So I'm like, I have to do that. So there's no option here. So then I had to upgrade, and then like, okay, yeah, now I'm in the cloud and everything, and I like it because now I have all these. I caught up on like 10 years of updates with the whole entire thing, and I love like doing like the the generative expand and that sort of thing. I mean, and here's the thing: that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and so you do have to work with. And the thing about it is too is just like, people are just like, oh my god, this is going to take away the creative jobs. I'm like, not if you're truly a creative.
No, it's not. It's
because if you're truly a creative, then you're going to need to be there every single step of the way, making sure that everything's there.
Not the 60. Yeah. It's not cutting.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Like this, to your point. So before we did this today, I was working on something and I was blown away. I got some results out of an animation that I was not expecting. I was like, holy shit. And so I kept going and I got this final sequence done, 4 seconds. And I was like, you just talked about one of the edges is soft and there's like a little blur. And I was like, I can go in 1 frame at a time in an image sequence in Photoshop now. And I can clean these up. I don't even need a Wacom tablet. I can do this with the mouse. Okay. I can go in there 1 frame at a time and clean this up in 20 minutes. Probably maybe an hour if I really want to.
Right.
And it's still going to be less time than it would have ever taken me to generate that animation on my own. I would have never been able to do it at that quality.
Right. Exactly.
But
because it does get you there.
But I have the skills to clean it up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So for me, AI is that extra 40%. So I know enough to get into the sandbox and to do what I got to do to get it done. But but there are very few scenarios where AI is generating something for me out of the box to 100%.
Yeah, I would say that any AI program that I've ever used for any project whatsoever has needed adjustment later.
So all right, let's move on, because AI brings me to Palantir, which brings me right back to President J.D. Vance. This whole AI thing. You could talk about it as a race, U.S. versus China, but I think that the bigger race is internal, and it's the Sam Altmans versus the Elon Musks versus the Metas versus the Oracles.
Right.
I brought up the President J.D. Vance thing because Twitter was on fire last night that Trump was leaving. Do you think, that
you know what, I saw like the AI synopsis of it on Twitter, but I didn't see anything else about because Trump has been missing for the past couple of days or so. And you know, I'm on the news most of the time, so I'm like, how did I not know about this? But is there any update on that? I mean,
we saw him today for a second on his way to the golf course. He didn't look great, but it was also like a blurry photo and whatever. He doesn't look great anyway.
Well, I mean, if he's going to the golf course, then he must be fine. But
it's a difference when you cheat. You don't have to really be in full capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know, I actually saw, so Twitter's on fire last night. Like, oh my God, Trump is gone. Trump, and I'm like, what are all these guys on the left going to do that yell about Trump bad all day long? Like, as soon as Trump,
what are they going to do? So Trump is gone in 3 years.
No, I know. And
he's gone.
That's a huge problem I have, is that the Democrats constantly using Trump as the boogeyman. I get it if your argument is for today. But what are you going to do when the boogeyman's gone? So is J.D. Vance boogeyman?
The answer to that question, they're going to still say it's Trump. They're going to say it's Trump for the next 15 to 20 years. And here's the problem with that. When they do that, they make themselves completely irrelevant over time. Now, you might be able to get away with that in 2029, 2030, but once it gets to 2031, everyone's going to look at you as just like, okay, whatever, you're crazy, I'm out. I'm not going to do with this because then it's just like, yeah, but he's gone. So why are you still talking about this? Because you're not being resonant. That's still the problem that the Democrats have today.
Correct.
They don't have any of that there. And you know, like, I don't want to give them any help, but there are ways that you could become relevant again.
You could just talk to people and stop overthinking everything you say and just be.
And also the other thing about it too is just like, what you didn't work. Try something else. Don't do the branding thing. Don't say it was our messaging. I'm like, no, everyone got the message. We don't like it.
Which, by the way, now they want to Trump wants to rebrand the big, beautiful bill. Rebranding the bill doesn't solve the problem of selling the bill on people. This whole rebranding thing, this is just why we're so stupid, because they think that rebranding is going to work, and they're probably not even wrong.
Well, the problem with just the concept of rebranding in general is that, and this goes with a lot of things, is that they do not count on the fact that people have memories, that people remember things. They think that because they live in a 24-hour news cycle and everything else, it's just like, okay, well, this is this, and then this is, and now we're going to rename it as that. I'm like, you think that people aren't going to remember what it was before?
But it's the Cracker Barrel thing.
You think that people aren't going to do that? Yeah, exactly.
If you don't change the food on the menu, I don't care what the store is called. I don't care what the logo looks like.
And that's the trap that you get into when you get into this normie mentality, because you are no more intelligent than anyone else. Okay, you're not. You might be more articulate. You might study something a little bit easier, but at the same time, it's just like, no, everyone else can do that. Just because you are in a position of authority does not mean that you have a higher intelligence level and that everyone else has a lower one. No, your customers, your employees, your guests, whatever it is, and everything, they remember what was and what is now, and they can either like or hate what is now.
For now, they remember. But I think this goes back to the stupidification. Boy, that's a mouthful. We're with all of this tech, with the flooding of AI and the timelines and everything, we are pushing ourselves to be capable of forgetting with ease. The disposable culture. And it's going to get worse, because the next bout of content on the internet is going to be AI slop built off of IP from the studios, and our timelines are going to get flooded with. I mean, you see like some of these ASMR videos now of glass fake shit. So there's a whole wave of just dumbing down coming. And that concerns
And
me.
people are, but here's the thing though, we're not going to accept it.
But we already have.
Most people are not going to. No, we haven't. We absolutely haven't. I know tons of people who are just like, I can't stand. And this is people that are in my age group, that are older than me, that are literally half my age. They're just like, I can't stand the AI slop. I don't want to deal with any of this crap and everything. And we as human beings, we are discounting right now our ability to discern the authentic from the inauthentic.
Correct.
So, yes, it will flood with that. And then what's going to happen? Any platform that decides to allow this to happen, and there's already been certain things, like I think it was like YouTube is also like has come down hard on completely AI generated content and everything. We are going to adapt to that part of it. We're like, no, this is not going to fly for most people.
And I don't think that has anything to do with attention spans. I think irrespective, I think it's just a further dumbing down. And then what you have is you have a whole bunch of people with short attention spans, and they don't hold any information of substance because everything is disposable. So it's in one ear and out the other. And how are you supposed to reach people?
Isn't it like that with? But isn't it like that? Couldn't you say that about any particular generation or any particular time, that there's always going to be people that are going to be plugged in and those people who are not?
I just equate it to the timeline scroll thing where everything is bite-sized. You know, you said something earlier in this 4-hour conversation that really resonated with me because I'm working on stuff. You talked about putting time into longer, like, for lack of a better phrase, longer form content.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that making a video and posting it today is one thing and whatever, but like the longer form content, the work shows, you can sit back when it's done, it has legs, it can be in theory sustainable, produce revenue. And we live in a world of consumable bite-sized content where it's always about going viral. Right. That's a fleeting thing. Viral doesn't give you legs. Mm-hmm. Look at anybody that's gone viral and tried to sustain a career. I mean, the Costco guys? Come on. So, like, that gives you a jumping off point. But if you don't have substance behind it, then you don't really have legs. So I just feel like this timeline, and
the more disposable that it is, the cheaper that it is for you to produce, the less memorable that it is for people,
and the less
because there's no actual intent with it and everything. You could say it's just like, oh yeah, this is flooding the market. Yes, it is flooding the market, but at the same time, it's tons of people flooding several markets, and no one's remembering it. No one cares about it at all. Meanwhile, we can talk about the Lord of the Rings trilogy days on end. We know that that Back to the Future is a perfect film. We can marvel right now. No pun unintended.
Yeah, I know.
We can marvel at the absolute exquisite beauty of the original 1937 version of Snow White. And, they did that horrible, remake, which we don't want to talk about because, good God, it's been talked about enough. But I really noticed in my sphere and everything, and just like so many people just really realizing the genius level craftsmanship of that 37 original. This movie that was done in an animation studio that didn't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
That created these fine works of art with enormous amounts of pain and suffering from the animators, from Walt and everything else, to bring this beauty to you. And I was watching it during that whole entire debacle and everything, because I'm definitely not going to watch the Rachel Zellweger or whatever her name is, because I've blocked it out already. But I'm watching the original, and one of the things that got me is just I'm like, this has a very relenting pace. It goes through. It's not fast paced, but it goes like it's like a symphony. That's one of the things that I noticed. I'm just like the editing of this and the timing of it. It's so rigorously done, and it's done in such a tight way. I'm just like it comes off like an opera or something.
But you know how much of that probably has to do with the physical touching, like the physical touching in the editing and being able to go, that's one too many frames. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
a romanticized aspect of
Mhm.
editing.
Well, yeah, because when you're dealing with any particular medium, I don't agree with the whole entire the medium is the message thing. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree with the perception that your medium determines the output in a certain way. So if you're dealing with like traditional animated characters as opposed to CG ones, you can make something happen, and then if it's a mistake, you can go ahead and you can delete it very quickly. So you can try like 15 different permutations of something. But if you're doing it with just an animated film, or you're doing it with just a single piece of art or whatever it is that you're working on, I would hope that this is how I do it. I'm just saying, like, there is enormous amounts of thought and process. I'm like, no, I don't want 15 freaking permutations of this. What is the perfect one? And how do I get to that one on the first try?
Well, I can tell you this much. This I know from the source. My ex's grandfather was one of Walt's animators. He was like literally, his name is Owen Fitzgerald. I mean, there's websites dedicated to him. And Owen would tell her stories that, because he worked on Snow White, I believe. They would slide down the cells in the hallway. They didn't think of themselves as artists. They were workers. They didn't sign. They were literally sliding on the animation cells down the hallway. It was a job in a factory. So the idea of sort of like, I'm in the computer now and I can be an artist and go over and over and over again. No, the real art was being the workhorse. You know?
Yeah.
Those guys.
And they're all so young too.
Yeah.
You're talking about people in their 20s.
That came on a train from the middle of the country in pursuit of a dream. And wound up
Walt Disney was an old man and he was 36. He was the old man master working on that. He was 36 years old.
Crazy.
So,
there was something else in there I wanted to unpack. So it's just in terms of short form content, you were talking about Snow White and kind of getting engulfed and all that. Going back to my ex, I saw her when I was out in California. And she's like, you need to finally watch Wicked. I'm like, you don't have to tell me. I've been wanting to watch Wicked. And she's like, she was saying to me how she's been consciously trying to get out of the feed of short form content and watching long form quality content, whether it's a podcast, whatever it may be. She wanted to get into long form. And I have not sat down and watched a movie like that in a while. Maybe a couple, but not like this. And when I tell you, I mean, I love Wicked, but when I tell you that I was transported to this world, and when it was over, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to go right back into it. And it was a feeling I had not had in a long time, you know, and it's doable. It's absolutely doable in today's world. They're few and far between.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, because when you play for the lowest common denominator, when you say it's just like, oh, yeah, we have an attention span of 25 seconds. Okay, then we need to make it 22 seconds. So I'm like, no, you make it 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's just like, you know, like people are talking about, oh, yeah, the kids today, they don't have the attention span, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you know how many long form podcasts people listen to every single day? You know, it's just like you've got psychologists with no background. I mean, physical sets. There's no physical set behind them. They're just talking on a stage to sold out houses. And they're really just musing and jazzing with themselves about different concepts and principles about how society is structured and how the human condition is, and people are glued to that. And you know, and they're just saying, oh, well, the kids today, they only like this or that and everything, and they only want to watch the latest thing. I'm like, no, every single time that I have seen any time, and I do this because I produce these kind of things. You know, I one of the things that I did last year is I didn't upscale. I redid my Disney Halloween special and my Christmas special and everything that I redid them in full HD and everything. And I get messages from parents who have children that are, you know, like 3 years old to 12 that are just like, when anything else comes on, when the latest show comes on and everything, they're playing, they're doing whatever and everything, they're making noise, they're being obnoxious, whatever it is. You put these classic cartoons on,
tractor beam,
glued, totally focused for an hour and a half.
Substance.
Yeah, and that's what. So I'm like, that you have to have hope in humanity for that with it. So it's just like, yeah, sure, there's going to be a lot of this stuff, but it's all going to be white noise. So what you need to do is you need to be the person who goes against that trend, who creates the thing that is of substance.
Well, I mean, look, not to prop up what we're doing here, but for anyone that wants to listen to this, we're doing over 4 hours of unedited conversation. There only may be 5 people in the world that want to listen to all 4.5 hours. But it's not about the clicks, right? It's not about going and cutting it down now to make it palpable. It's no, this is what we're going to do. And it is, I love the jazz analogy. It's a very freewheeling conversation. And it's raw. And I think that actually is the thing that's going to become the next innovation. Once we get through this AI slop bottom that we're going to hit, it's going to be, oh, wow, that's verifiable. 2 real people having a real conversation. Like there's going to be a check mark or something, and you're going to be like, wow, that's actually a selling point now. That's an authentic, and I don't mean authentic as in your principles are authentic. I mean, it's not an AI-generated talking head.
Right, yeah, because like that's one of the buzzwords that this is probably a tangent from what you were saying, but like the thing that really bothers me, like the post election, is when they said, okay, oh yeah, this was the podcast election and everything, and then everyone was just like, oh yeah, we're the big guys in the on things, we know what's going on, and these are entertainment YouTube channels. These are not the intellectual base that I'm looking at and everything. These are not the wonderful Chris Williamson with modern wisdom and trigonometry and everything.
And the Theo Vaughn.
And they're just like, oh yeah, we're the people there. And then they said the words just like, and you know why they like us? Because we're authentic. I'm like, that's really low resolution, because really just because you can be authentically a jerk and authentically uncharismatic. So they're not looking for your authenticity. They're looking for integrity. They're looking for consistency. It's all that stuff.
If you call it, goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like, Bob Iger in the book saying he's such a great husband. If you are out there proclaiming your authenticity, you likely are not.
Exactly.
I think it shows. I've never been one to have to go out of my way to convince people that I love Disney. But anyone that knows me and can spend 5 minutes like talking to me, that my passion for the subject matter comes through. So I've never been one to sell it to people, and I've never felt the need to sell it. So going back to the Twitter stuff, and I do have 2 more political points, but I know I wanted to get to this Twitter thing with you. So when I see all these people out there talking and rage tweeting and doing all this stuff, I oftentimes want to chime in because I know what I know, but then I realize it's not even worth my energy getting down into the trenches with some of these people.
Right. Yes.
Because you're not sitting across the table from a contemporary. And I don't know what you want to say or what you don't want to say, but I definitely have seen you being on the receiving end of that. You do a lot more of that engaging. And to be really candid, sometimes you do step your toe into the toxic water and play with these people. I usually wind up typing the tweet and then fully deleting it and never sending.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if I'm going to type out something, if I'm going to take the time to do it, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it. So I make that decision beforehand. But with that,
I find it more cathartic to type it out and go, that was good enough.
No. I'm definitely going to let you know. So there's some interesting dynamics with that. About I don't know, 4 years ago now, I came up with this thing, again, riffing off of Jordan Peterson, which I've been saying, referencing him a lot with this without actually saying his name until this point, is that I did 12 rules for Twitter. Back when it was Twitter. I need to refine. There's a couple of them haven't stood the test of time, but I'd say about 85% of them have. And one of the things that is a principle with that one is that, first of all, if you feel like this is high school and you feel like this is something that is juvenile, it's because it is, because we still allow children on these platforms. And I actually just had that recently. I had somebody that came on to mine and just like, and they were talking about, like, who cares about Rivers of America, blah, 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 blah. And he said something, and I'm just like, and he said, that's not remarkable to create that. I'm like, do you know how to create an artificial river system? You know that you have to put in canals that are actually 3 or 4 times the size of the river that you're making in order for it to do proper drainage, and that you have to do elevations and everything. This is no small feat, and especially that it was done in a completely virgin land swamp with zero infrastructure. This is extraordinarily impressive architectural accomplishment. It doesn't matter that they did it in Disneyland first.
Right.
This was impressive on its own merits. Right. And at the end of that conversation, the guy finally reveals to me, and this is the first time that I've ever had somebody say it full out. I've suspected it a lot. But he's just like, well, okay, to be quite honest, I'm 18. And I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, I've been lambasting this poor child. And it's like, and he finally he said, uncle, it's just like, and like you're dealing with children with a lot of this stuff. And here's something that I've really adopted. And I try to do this religiously. Keep in mind, everyone, including myself, is going to break all of these rules because we're all human. But, whenever I see somebody in my mentions that says something snarky or says something that or this and that and everything, always click on the profile and look at who you're dealing with.
I just don't even waste my time anymore. There's somebody that came after you about a week ago calling you ineffective. Mm-hmm. And I almost chimed in. Mm-hmm. That's your Xbox controller?
No, that's my phone.
Oh. Then I was looking at my Xbox controller and I was like, is that my Xbox
They probably want to know, where are you?
I'm on hour 5. We'll wrap this up. But yeah, so I'm like, first of all, here's the problem I had with that. There was no reason to take a shot at you from across the way. It didn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And then to your point about clicking on the profile, if you clicked on this person's profile, it says that they have a quote unquote safe space. But they don't have a safe space. They're a rage tweeter. And I oftentimes want to take the bait, and I don't, because I remind myself that this person's literally a troll.
Right.
And I oftentimes find them amusing. And then other times can't stand them. And then I realize that's all Twitter is to me. And if I want to go on Twitter and I'm bored and I want to argue with somebody, that's a conscious decision to devote some energy in that direction. But generally speaking, when I look like people like that who think they're part of the community and in their own fantasy land think they have some sort of clout because they have a few thousand followers, I'm like, you're nothing. You're a consumer in pursuit of an identity. And if your only identity, is on Twitter, and seeking adulation from your followers on Twitter or seeking hate because this particular individual, thrives off of that as well, then you must have a really broken household.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can say that, and I often wonder about the psychology of these people who come in and attack and everything. I do notice that there is a very, very, very common streak that happens with them, where they will. It's almost it's about 94% of all the hate that I get are from sports bros. It's anybody who has a sports team in their bio or a sports banner and everything, and just say, go Cubs or go Mets or go whatever it is, because I don't do the sports thing. Right. And so
same.
Although I have some wonderful people who are sports fans and everything, and I love them and they're great and everything, but those are very rare. But
listen,
I do.
Grandmas.
If you knew why,
I'm not talking about your grandma. He was talking about your grandma.
Yeah, I know. But in any case, I look at those, and they will do that. Now, what I will do, and I used to think that this was very, very rude, but now I see that, like, look, if you're on Twitter, you have to say so, you have to play some of this game. Is that like when you quote tweet somebody who sent a reply to you? Well, I will do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is that if I notice that they have an extremely low follower count, and I'm just like, okay, well, if I'm going to spend the time to make a well-crafted tweet and everything, I don't want to just go out to no one. So I want people to actually see what my response is.
So you quote,
and if you're legitimately coming at me with venom and everything, then I'm going to go at you with that. And also, and this might sound haughty about it, but I'm like, this is a teachable moment for everyone, and I think that everyone needs to know what's going on.
That's just
with
you
this.
and your soapbox. You love that.
I'm going to go ahead and yeah, sure, but at the same time, I'm just like, no, I'm legitimately. That's a sincere response. I mean, I'm giving you the slightly sinister delivery, but I'm like, no, this is really a teachable moment for people. You need to know that. Say that again.
Also, no, it's falling on deaf ears with most of these people.
Well, with the person that I'm quote tweeting, yes, but with everyone else that I get likes and retweets and just like, yeah, that was. And here's the other thing about it, because yes, it can be a cesspool, and it is an enormous time suck, which I'm trying to, I'm trying to make it less of one. But at the same time, I also know that if you leave these platforms to their own degeneration into insanity, then you have no one to blame but yourself. Because if you're a genuine person about this, and I try to do that, and I hope that I don't sound arrogant or self-aggrandizing with this, but I'm like, if you are trying to be a voice of sanity, I think it's your obligation to share that. It's his obligation to do that with people.
I agree with you, but I feel lately like I'm just adding to the noise, which is why I don't say half of the things I want to say. I will admit to you, I sometimes get caught up in like, I don't want to tweet that. That's going to piss people off. Then I'm going to lose followers. And I don't really give a shit about losing followers, but you just get caught into the game. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing with that is, is that I literally, there are times when I'm like, no, that's way too controversial, or people aren't going to get that. Just go ahead and do that. I do censor. It might sound shocking to people, but I do censor. But there are times when I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say this anyway. And I've said this many times. And like every single time that I make a tweet, it's a test of your intelligence and your maturity. If you respond in a certain way, then you're out, then you're blocked, or whatever it is and everything. I'm like, every single tweet is a test of your response to to what I'm saying. Now, if you want to say, Joshua, I think you're off base on that, let me go ahead and give you some facts or different perspective. Great. I don't need to be Mr. Right. I would love to be Mr. Happy, but unfortunately, most of the time I'm Mr. Right. So that's something that goes on with that one. So I always try. So I'm always like testing the waters, and it's like, okay, and here's the thing about it too. It's just like when I talk about blocking, I'm always saying like it's not blocking, it's audience curation.
I say that too. I used to say that on my lives. I'd be like, I'm just curating my audience. You've been cordially invited to stop watching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I say the same exact thing.
Yeah, and one of my semi-snarky ones is just like, because one of the things that people like to say occasionally is that I'm insufferable. I'm just like, oh, I'm insufferable. Well, I will remove your suffering.
Yeah,
so I'll be more than happy to do that. Yes.
The community's insufferable. Generally speaking, the theme park, I don't like these terms, Diz, Twitter, and whatever. It's all one big hodgepodge of man children, even the females, okay? Because some of the females are just absolutely nauseating, just in terms of their rhetoric. So I think it is completely the theme park community is a completely toxic community, not just on Twitter, but across the board, filled with a bunch of adults, many of which are raising children, and in many ways they're just children raising children. But I think that these social media theme park consumers, if you will, are a huge detriment to the theme park industry. And I think that while there's an upside to having an influencer at your event and this, that, and the other, generally speaking, the oversaturation of content coming out of theme parks is bad for the future of business.
Right. And I've had this conversation with people that I genuinely respect that do give out consistent content and everything else. But they do it in a way, and I'm not saying this because they're my friends. I'm saying it just because it's right, is that they're doing it from an entirely different angle. They're doing it from a point of enlightenment or education. They're not doing it for, oh, look, this is a new cupcake, or I'm going to go on this ride for the 15,000th time. Thank you for your super chats.
Mm-hmm. I feel attacked.
What?
I feel attacked.
Yeah, exactly. No. But it's also like, my problem with it too is just I'm like, what are you actually giving of value to your viewers? Because yes, we all have, because we do have that thing where everyone wants to, like, I can't be in the parks right now, or I can't afford to go, so I want to see somebody go for me. Okay, fine, that works for a little while, but I mean, like, but what are you doing to add value to your viewers?
What are you doing to add value to your life?
Yeah. Or or to your life, or anything of that nature.
I know you're not talking about me, but you are. No, I know, but you are talking about me. I know you're not intentionally, but I spent 4 years live streaming the parks on TikTok. You know this. And I looked at it at a certain point. You know, in the beginning, I didn't do it to make money. I did it as escapism. And then it grew into a business, and I was making really good money. I mean, I shouldn't even say how much money I was making a month. I didn't want to do it anymore. And it's not that I didn't want to do it anymore, because I still love the parks and I still love sharing it with my audience from time to time. But I didn't want to be their Disney daycare provider in exchange for $5 a month and a parasocial relationship, particularly in a place where you can come book a vacation and then stalk me on a ride. And once you've lived through a lot of that, you know, you have your perspectives. So that was a part of it. And then the other part of it is I don't want to be a Tom Morrow. I don't want to be what is that cringy oafy looking guy? Tim Tracker. I don't want to be a douchebag like Tim Tracker. I want to be my own douchebag. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be the Disney guy. I don't want to be Disney this or I love that stuff, but I don't need my audience to validate my love of the parks. So for me, I looked at it. There was a sum of things going on from the TikTok and the way they chose to operate, from the election to the parks and the state, all these different things all coming. And I'm like, you know what? This thing has gone on longer than I ever expected it to, but I'm walking away. I'm breaking it.
Right.
You know, because I looked at it, I go, I don't want to be defined by this anymore. I don't want to be known as the Disney guy. I mean, it got to the point where I'd walk into the park. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without getting stopped. You know, I'd walk into a bathroom and some guy would try to shake my hand and go, "Hey, congratulations on 500,000 followers." I'd be like, "That's really great, but I got to pee." Like really, really bad. You know, so I know that I contributed to the toxicity just because people saw me doing what I was doing with success and ease and thought that they would jump onto the trend and did it with no cause or consideration for the guest experience. You know?
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of dynamics that are associated with that. So you know, it's just like, okay, like those that live stream and they're talking to their phone the entire way through and everything. It's just it's like the whole entire thing. Like no one likes to hear somebody on speakerphone on a subway, or in our case a monorail or whatever it is.
Walmart
yeah, exactly. I'm just like, no one wants to hear that, you know, and it's enormously egotistical and everything. So there are people that I do know some that are enormously respectful, that their content is always well done. But those are by far the minority, and most of them are not that way. And my thing about that one is just like, I think the toxicity really emanates from there's a certain, you know, there's the old adage, you know, familiarity breeds contempt. So if you because I think that at any time period of the day, you can go on to YouTube, click on the live, and see and there's always somebody in some Disney park somewhere doing something. And that's a problem because these are really supposed to be special experiences. These are supposed to be things that happen ever so often. You're not supposed to have an annual passport and go inside the parks every single day. And yeah, I'm talking to you people at Disneyland a lot. You're not supposed to do that. You're not. Yeah. You're not adding value. You're also not adding value to society in general. Just like, what should you be doing with your life? Yeah, I know you go to work, but what do you have as a passion project? What do you have that's a charity thing that you're doing and everything? So
personally, I was making a living doing it. And then TikTok was like propping me up. And then it was like, oh, I go to VidCon. So then people were like, oh, he's making a living doing this. I should make a living doing this. And I'm like, it's not going to work for everybody because it takes a lot of work. Right. But also I had an internal logic set that I was playing with. So whatever. The reason I got to all that is I'm now of the mindset, and tell me what you think on this. And then I got to get to the two political things to get out of here. So I'm looking at it going, with the oversaturation of content creators and everybody being an armchair Imagineer and everybody having an opinion on everything. Okay. Even if they're not, they're just watching now. And I'm seeing, I'm seeing an opening attraction and giving you my thoughts on it through a screen. Right. Yeah. So maybe in many ways that double-edged sword is the reason Disney stops listening to feedback. I know that they have their ear to the ground, but maybe part of the problem is everything is so oversaturated and everything is at the same volume that we've done a disservice to ourselves. Because they've never. If you're looking at it so far as a fandom or something, Disney has never considered them. They've never taken them seriously ever, like ever. Well, because they don't act seriously.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem with it, and also, like you might be dealing with somebody who's enormously well intentioned, and say that look, I don't like what you're doing here, or I do like what you're doing here, whatever it is. But if they're not able to articulate themselves in an intelligent way, then that's something that you can't really take seriously. Also, these are companies that need to perform their business. Look, I hate most of the things that they're doing right now. I really profoundly hate them. But I also completely understand why you would never want to take seriously what the fandom says right now, because most of this stuff is profoundly garbage level material. Right. So
that's what I'm saying, though. So if we didn't have all this oversaturation, maybe something like Save the Magic Kingdom would actually break through because it would be heard.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Because then you would, that's wonderful. That would have been great. And I'm not saying this to you to be in a patronizing way, but I'm like, you're never going to get that kind of perfect storm with things. It's just like you just hope that something catches on. That's why I had so many different posts, and I had tons of posts in my back pocket that I could have done. I'm like, this is how profoundly stupid this is. I'm like, for like months, and I really hated running this campaign. I'm a designer. I'm an artist. I'm a historian. I'm a philosopher. I'm not supposed to be dealing with these. Yeah, I'm not supposed to be dealing with all of this nasty semi-political stuff. I'm not supposed to do that. So I really profoundly hated doing this. But at the same time, like almost every 3 or 4 days, I came up with a completely new angle to look at this through. Yeah. About this is how stupid this is. This is how stupid it is from this angle. Look at this from this angle. It's kind of like the Star Cruiser or Galaxy's Edge or any of those things that are infinite failures all the way down, which is really fascinating that you can how can you fail this many ways? That's really impressive on its own.
It's hard to fail that many times.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's just like so. You're never going to be able to get to that point with that. I've thought for a very long time now, there are ways, and you would probably know this more than I would, there are ways that Disney could stop this, and I do think that they should. And here's what I think. I think that what you do is you figure out a way to throttle the bandwidth to where people can make posts on Twitter, They can, of course, you can record whatever you want to in the parks, but nothing live.
Tokyo doesn't
Nothing
need
live.
that. They'll just send a 7-foot tall guy after you and hunt you down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they will. Yeah. So it's just, that, and that's what I think that they should really, really do with that. And also, there's the whole entire, everyone knows about every single negative incident that happens inside the park and everything. And I can't really, that's, I'm like, as much as I hate using this word because it's so overused and it's so saccharine, but I'm just saying, like, you really are killing the magic when you're doing that, because if you talk about, look, this ride has a downtime, or this guy decided to get high and strip naked and swim in It's a Small World. I'm just saying, like, no one needs to know that.
That was not
No one
me.
needs to know that. Yeah,
Me.
no, it wasn't. Yeah. But
I was the lazy river guy.
Yeah, you're a lazy river. Yeah, that's the important one right there. But yeah, so yeah.
Put your facts straight. But like for me, taking a step back, and I would imagine you would agree with this. You can understand when you look at the way that the average toxic Disney consumer acts online, why Disney wants to get rid of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
Who will?
But they're not representative of your actual clientele.
No, but they're the ones that pay every upcharge.
Correct.
So
correct. Yeah,
it's a trade-off.
Yeah, but also the thing that I think that you perhaps are maybe discounting with that is the fact that, look, okay, if I can tell the difference between a genuine sane Disney fan and an insane one, then so can they. Then so can they can tell. It's just like, okay, look, the people that are upset that we're getting rid of this food cart, forget it. The people that are upset about Muppets, let's go and let's figure out what's going on with them, and maybe we could work out a deal with them. The people that are really upset about Rivers, my God, they are really, really upset. We really need to. You can, if I can do this, you can do this. If you can do this, they can do this.
Here's what's so wild about that. The president of Walt Disney World was actually responding to emails, so he could have had those conversations.
He could,
like, literally, he could have been like, "Oh, guess what? This is already happening, but I appreciate the passion in your email. So let me put you in touch with my assistant, because we want to do like an exit interview with you kind of thing and decompress." So there was an opportunity there, because he was reading the emails.
Yeah.
They just don't care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also, you're dealing with a certain amount of ego with that. You're dealing with a person who is used to being in an echo chamber. So if they encounter just the slightest bit of negativity, it's just like, it's the end of the world for them, because Jeff has surrounded himself with yes men. Bob Iger has surrounded himself with yes men. And if you're not a yes man, you get fired very, very quickly. So it's just like, if you had the remotest negative thing to say, it's just like, it's over for the conversation. They won't have it. You get to a certain point, and this even happens with people that are benign, people that I actually love and care about. Like, I have like Imagineering legends and everything that I talk to normally. And there are certain things that I do not talk to them about because of compassion, because I'm like, if I'm going to be spending my time with whatever, I'm like, I'm not going to want to bring up ugly things, because I want to bask in the glow of your genius and your creativity.
Yeah, but also, why waste energy on this?
So yeah, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm just like, you would not believe the horrible crap that they're doing to your creation right now. It is so awful, and I'm not going to do that. And here's the thing about that too, is that when you get to that point, even with the benign stuff, even with these people, I'm just like, well, then they have, then everyone else has isolated them from reality. So that's a particular situation. And the same thing with I'm like, if Bob Iger knew half of the thoughts that I was in my head, first of all, he would probably pass out, because I cannot believe somebody thought about that for me. But also at the same time, it would just be like, Wow, I really didn't think about it that way. This is really bad. He is really, really pissed off with a lot of the stuff that I've done. Maybe I should probably figure out what's going on with that, because I think that maybe, if this guy right here, and I don't mean myself
No,
personally,
I know you don't, and I
but
know
it's
somebody
just,
will cherry pick that
yeah,
and go, "Oh my God,
yeah,
look at that ego."
yeah,
But really, what you're
yeah,
saying
yeah.
is that, and this is what I've been saying, is your points on Save the Magic Kingdom are rooted in business calculation. So if
Because
somebody,
I was addressing it to the people who were actually in charge of it.
right,
That's the reason
so
why.
anybody who
So,
actually understands the business would hear it loud and clear.
hmm
So that's
yeah.
why the people on Twitter don't get it, number one. And number two, that's why people like Jeff Volley and Bob Iger don't get it, because they don't even understand the business they're in.
No.
All right, listen, I got to get back to this JD Vance thing. I was trying to get a question out. Do you think JD Vance is a Peter Thiel puppet? And if he is, do you think that he is a more dangerous commander-in-chief than a Donald Trump?
No and no.
Wait, what was the question?
So,
No, I got it.
yeah, exactly. So I don't really think that JD again. Like I think he's fine. He doesn't thrill me, but he's very good at what he is doing right now. I think that he is principled, and I think that he really cares about what's going on. And I don't see him as being anybody's puppet. And yes, I know about his history with Peter Thiel and everything. And I actually support a lot of what Peter Thiel does. I was engaged in a conversation recently with somebody about him, and it was a conservative person, and they were profoundly perturbed about the whole entire Palantir thing. I'm just saying, like, well, keep in mind that my exposure to Peter Thiel primarily is through his philosophical expressions when he does podcasts and when he does everything else with it that have really nothing to do with his business. And I think that his points are extraordinarily salient, because when he's talking about like that we need to cater our world to a human perspective, that it should be about human flourishing. I mean, I see that he has an enormous amount of integrity with the way that he believes. I don't think that, and I haven't really invested too much into looking into Palantir, although I know a little bit about it. But I'm just looking at him more as a general philosopher, and he's also somewhat of a futurist as well. It's just like he one of his famous quotes is, we wanted flying cars, but we got 140 characters, and he talks about the stagnation of our technology.
That's a shot at Elon.
That's yeah, and he talks about the well, actually, this was way before the Elon thing, but he said that, and he's talking about the fact that like we have not progressed scientifically as a society in 70 years. Sure, everything that happened in the world of what he calls bits or digital, that's what went and sailed far beyond. But if you're talking about what actually happens in the world of atoms, if you're talking about the world of actual physics, we are no different now than we were in the 1950s. Like if you took out every single screen and every single electronic in the world right now, it's basically still the 50s.
Yeah, I can see that.
And to futurists and people that are like want to see some societal progression and everything, and looking at it from a physical world, I'm like, that could be somewhat of a problem. And so that's one of his key concepts that I'm really, really turned on by. And I think that, just like he's fine with it. And I know that, so Palantir, from what I understand, it deals with enormous amounts of data surveillance. And I'm like, as long as you're on our side, and I mean just the American side, not left or right side, but I'm like, as long as you're doing it for that reason, then fine, go ahead and do whatever that you need to do with it. But again, I don't want to speak out of turn with that, so I'm not particularly educated on Palantir there, other than the fact that it has a really cool name that comes from Lord of the Rings. So that's about it.
Listen, speaking of rings, my introduction to Peter Thiel is the Hulk Hogan Gawker lawsuit. So do with that what you will. That's how I knew him, because he, Peter Thiel, for those who don't know, Gawker outed him ages ago. Gawker was a thing. And he was pissed. And when the Hulk Hogan Bubba the Love Sponge sex tape thing debacle unraveled, because of his disdain for Gawker and them outing him, he bankrolled the Hulk Hogan lawsuit against Gawker and crushed Gawker. Just a fun fact. So that's how I know him. I don't know him personally. That's how I came to be made aware of him. You using the word integrity and him in the same sentence is a bit jarring, but I'll let that go. I look at him and he looks like the lizard people David Icke told us about a long time ago.
Well, I don't see it that way. I've seen probably about 4 or 5 different hours of content with him, doing the podcast circuits and everything else, and he's just I really don't see. I don't see that.
Okay,
I don't see that. No.
Who would you trust less, Peter Thiel or Sam Altman?
So Sam Altman is the one that did what again?
He's OpenAI.
Oh, okay, that one. Yes, exactly. So yeah, no, I trust Peter Thiel.
I figured you would. Sam Altman's really, really slimy, smarmy.
Well, and the thing that gets me too is just you have all these people that are in charge of AI right now, and they're all in this Dr. Frankenstein stupid mode where it's just oh, I'm so concerned about my creation. Well, not necessarily my creation. Mine's good, but everybody else in my field is doing something bad.
And you're
what are we going to do? By the way, boss, we need you to sign off for another $1 trillion in AI. Okay, cool. Good.
Yeah.
But I'm so concerned.
I'm so worried. Yeah, and first of all, great impression. For those who don't know Sam Altman, that was pretty close. But it is one of these things where I'm like, if you AI bros are great hope in this arms race with China, if we are in an arms race with China, we're never going to win. Because Sam Altman and Elon Musk arguing over who's got the better AI system is the most unfocused, undisciplined thing you can do. And these guys just want to have a dick slinging contest on Twitter all day long.
I am happy that Elon Musk has been is now, everyone hates him for, granted, I'd like to hate, I like people to hate him for the reasons that I do, but I know that some people are for the completely opposite.
Don't get greedy.
But I'm just well, I kind of remember that because I'm like, no, you should not like somebody for the reasons that I don't like them. Because I have a friend who used to work for Tesla, and he's just oh yeah, well, I had to leave Tesla because I couldn't stand Elon Musk and everything and what he was doing, and I'm like, well, I know that I profoundly cannot stand Elon Musk myself, but I'm like, I know that you don't like him for the exact opposite reasons that I don't like him. So this is not a bonding experience between us two right now. So and I kept quiet, but I'm just yeah, it's kind of weird.
I know why you don't like Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. I think I can nail this one. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
My theory is you don't like Elon Musk because he hasn't created jack shit.
I don't like Elon Musk because he is an enormous hypocrite. He is, he's a person who's so concerned about AI, but yet he funds AI. He's so concerned about this or that issue, so he funds the thing that does the exact opposite from that. He's so concerned about the planet so he creates the Tesla, so he creates the Tesla electric vehicles, which we have already discovered are enormously problematic and very detrimental to the environment overall. You really want to have you really want to focus on more hybrid technology. So you want to do a combination of internal combustion and battery for it. You deal with the slave labor that's associated with the car. So it's definitely not going to work for the processes that you're working for. If you were legitimately caring about the environment, Mr. Musk, you would start to dismantle your organization at Tesla immediately. But one of the not the biggest for me personally, but one of the biggest ones is this ridiculous Mars crap. This Mars stuff is
Well,
despicable.
we're not.
and
First of all, we
stupid.
can't take care of this planet. We're going to go ruin another one.
Well, there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
Yeah. Well, not yet.
And we're gonna die. Anyone who goes there is going to die of radiation poisoning within a minute.
Not if you're living in
Okay.
an Amazon factory.
Yeah. But they, I'm like, you're never going to get
that
every
penis
single thing
rocket
that you
from,
need.
what is it? JetBlue?
Mhm.
What is it?
Yeah, exactly. The Blue Origin or something.
That was close.
But he, and so he's just like, oh yeah, we got to become interplanetary. I'm like, where's the planet? Where's the planet that has if you're going to use Star Trek terminology, where's the M-class planet? Because I don't see one anywhere. Where is it? Because everything else has no oxygen. It's either freezing cold or we're going to burn up and die, and we've got nowhere else to go with this. And that also is a violation of the concept of Spaceship Earth. Okay, because Spaceship Earth is not just that geosphere over there. No, Spaceship Earth is an entire concept. This is the only place that we will ever be, that there's ever going to be any possibility for us for. There's too much vast distances if you were to go to anywhere else. So this whole entire thing, and it's also part of something that I've noticed that I was talking with a friend about a couple nights ago, and I called it Pharaoh psychosis, which is, a lot of people who are of means tend to want to cocoon themselves into, they want to create the largest bunker possible for themselves so that they can maintain some sort of ridiculous fantasy of immortality. Like Elon with, it's just like, oh yeah, well, I want to go ahead and become interplanetary so our species doesn't die. I'm like, well, first of all, I mean, like, I'm a Christian. And I think that you're Jewish. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So we know it's just like, okay, well, that's the immortality thing is stupid. So you're not going to be able to do that. And if you were really going to say, okay, the life is going to die on this planet. Okay, well, if you go on to Mars, and you're never going to be able to terraform it in time for us to be able to create a livable expanse. We don't have enough massive technology, massive resources to transport from Earth to Mars. Mm-hmm. It's profoundly ridiculous, but let's say that you were able to do that. And then you have an asteroid or whatever it is that comes to this planet in full extinction level event. Well, all you're doing is just prolonging. All you're doing is just prolonging the inevitable for yourself. It's like the whole entire thing is just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have nuclear war. It's just like, okay, let me go ahead and get a bunker for it. I'm like, why? So you could die slowly of radiation poisoning? If we're going to have a nuclear war, I want to be right there at ground zero, and I want to go like that.
You know, it's a shame that MGM, I just looked this up, MGM owns the rights to Biodome, because that would be a hell of a Spaceship Earth retheme.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you talking about the Pauly Shore thing?
I thought maybe it was a Fox property and we would have had something going here.
Yeah. That was a funny, that was a funny movie. I like that.
Listen, this is a very important issue to me, and I know we're having some fun and everything, but I want to end on a very serious issue. And I'm not joking. What are your thoughts on sending the National Guard into cities to fight crime? And I say fight crime loosely because obviously,
right? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So, here's the problem with that. Actually, it's not a problem with that. I'm for it, and the reason why I'm for it is because of the there's ideological capture in all of these places. So when you're dealing with mayors that are in these cities, they're all blue, so we could just say it from that way. You're dealing with a highly constrictive power center where they are unable to do their jobs, even if they want to. Mm-hmm. So you have the mayor of pick whatever location. They are so much in an echo chamber. They are so much in a stifling environment that if they did one thing correct to bring law and order into their cities, it's going to destroy their political career and probably their lives themselves. Because let's take, for example, I mean, who is the mayor of LA right now? Meryl Bowser, am I thinking?
Karen Bass. Isn't Muriel
Karen
Bowser?
Bass,
Isn't she DC?
Yeah, I'm getting them mixed
That's
up. So you have Karen Bass there, and let's say that she actually decides
To do her job?
tomorrow to do her job.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly. So then she decides to do her job. Well, everyone else underneath her is just like, this is going to be really problematic, Karen. I'm not sure that you want to go ahead and do this. And then she's just like, no, I'm going to be principled about it. I'm going to do what's right. We're going to bring law and order. We're going to go ahead and we're going to clean up the streets. And we're going to blah 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 blah. Well, she's like 5 seconds away from being murdered. Really?
Okay, wait.
Assassinated.
We're
assassinated.
Like, now we're just this is where you're losing the plot.
No. No. This is all related to it. They need to have an outside force come in and restore the law and order, so that they don't get destroyed either politically or physically, and that way they can reestablish a homeostasis for their region, because they need to have an outside source.
But Trump isn't going to send the National Guard in to do a political favor for Karen Bass. Number one. No, but it's also like you have to look at it also from the perspective of, it's not just that L.A. is Karen Bass's city, or that it's Gavin Newsom's city. It's also Trump's city, because he's the president. Okay.
And you have to have,
the chief law and order man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the truth. It's just like, okay, if you can't do it on your level, then I need to do it at my level. So that's just the way that works.
I actually agree with you. I don't think you were expecting that. I don't think
you set it up opposite, so good for you.
What's that?
You set it up in an opposite way, so good for you. Yeah, you got me faking out.
Well, because I don't think LA is the problem. And I don't think that Trump and Pam Blondie, to quote Laura Loomer, I don't think that they are really interested in solving the problem. I think it's more performative BS, because, and I've unfortunately had to learn this the hard way. Seattle has something just shy of 2 police officers per capita. It's closer to 1, I believe, per capita. Washington, D.C. has over 5 per capita police officers. Now that's desk and beat cops. So there's 1 cop for every 1,000 residents in Seattle. There are murders on the daily in Seattle. Maybe some days there's not a murder and it's the next day, but there are murders multiple times a week. Okay. Seattle's in a state of crisis.
Correct.
Why are we talking about LA? Why are we talking about Chicago? They have to know. So my whole thing is, if you really want to solve the problem and make your point, go where the crisis is and take the National Guard into Seattle.
Well, right now he hasn't sent them into any city that isn't Washington, D.C., and the reason why he can't do this is because he doesn't have the legal authority.
Right, which is why he's like, well, if you give me permission, then I can come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that would actually be. I think that would be an enormous political victory for the left as well.
Agreed.
I mean, if you can say, it's just like Karen Bass says, yes, you can bring in the National Guard and everything, and you can take it. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. I wouldn't ever announce it.
No, but that's her. That's how she talks, like a mouse.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yeah, you can do that as well. Yeah. Now I understand what you're meaning. But yeah. So you can do that. You can do that, and then they get to look like the good guy afterward and everything for their actual.
But they're not going to do it because they hate Trump. And Seattle is a bunch of Democrats. By the way, I can't stand calling it blue and red states, because there's plenty of crime in red states. Okay. Mm-hmm. But we can't have that conversation. And that's a slippery slope, too. Because if you really want to have that conversation, go look at the stats on who's committing the crime. Okay, fine. But in Seattle in particular, there's no way that a city that Democrat politicians in a city like Seattle, I'm not going to call it blue, but in a state like Washington, in a city like Seattle, there's no way that Democrat leaders are going to give Trump a victory. They're not going to open up the doors and welcome him in. They're not going to do it even if the long-term ramifications are good for them, because their party won't allow that. See, my theory is the reason the Democrats really hate Trump is because he ran as a Republican. My operating theory is that the establishment Democrat Party would have loved to have Trump run for them. Chuck Schumer,
but it wasn't going to work because of the scheduling with Hillary and everything else.
It's not even a scheduling thing. It was a choice. Trump chose a playbook. Trump didn't want to be president. He just wanted to get a pay raise on The Apprentice. Okay? So my whole thing is, if you all really want to fight crime, Seattle is a city in emergency. Look at the numbers. You're a numbers guy. It's not an opinion. 1 cop per capita? That's insanity.
Right.
So I am all for sending the National Guard to Seattle. I don't think they should send it to LA. First of all, I don't, for a variety of reasons, I don't think LA needs the help. Okay. And I also think LA leadership should be left to lead California leadership should be left to figure out how to lead California, because they're failing miserably. But I am somebody that if you would have asked me 3-4 weeks ago, I would have had a very different answer. But I'm going to tell you from life experiences, from personal experiences, and witnessing things that I really don't want to get into. But when it touches your life and it touches people you care about, it becomes a wake up call. And I just look at it personally and I go, you know what? I'm not a Trump guy, okay? But I'll tell you what. You know what? If you want to be loved, if you want history to remember you, then you need to force gun legislation. Right? If you want to be the big crime fighter, if you really want to, like we just had another school shooting. If you really want to be the hero, okay? You really want to make it to heaven. Not that it works this way, so I'm told. I'm a Jew. I didn't read that book. Somebody read it to me. So
we worship the same God. It's just that I deal with version 2.0. You're in
I got
the
Old Testament. You got the New Testament. There's
system.
2 sides to every sword. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's just like for me. Like I don't like most of what Trump does. Okay, but I recognize that the man operates with will. Okay, and when he has the desire to do something, he doesn't always get it done, but he can certainly force movement. And I'm looking at this tragedy that just happened. Seattle is one thing, but if you just want to talk about a problem that everybody can get on board with solving, you know, we have to get to a point in this country where there are no more school shootings. We have to have gun legislation, and there should be no acceptable environment where we're interviewing 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds on television, having them recount the tragedy that they witnessed. So I'm just of the mindset that if Trump really wants to go out with a bang, okay, he should be ramrodding gun legislation.
So when you say gun legislation, you're talking about what specifically?
Listen, that's you want to elect me? I'll put together a committee and I'll do the homework. I'm not going to sit here.
Okay, so what's your so
we need assault rifles off the street. That we know.
We already, in every single shooting that has happened that I'm aware of, because you know we see it on the news all the time. Every single one that has ever happened post Columbine, it's always something where somebody in authority already knew what was going on, and there was laws that were already being broken. There was already checks and balances that weren't being honored, and that's a failure of the bureaucracy. It's not failure of the law, because every single time they just don't follow the law. And it is so if you so with all of these situations, they are always just like, well, yeah, we were tracking this person. We saw that this was unusual. We didn't really do anything fast enough, and we didn't
Yeah, but you can't
intercede with it.
We constantly talk about how unintelligent this culture has become, and you can't rely on people to self-regulate, and you certainly can't create a precedent where we're minority reporting people before they ever commit a crime.
That's the sticking point.
That's why we need legislation, because people need to be controlled.
There's no way that you can do that, because the only way that when you're creating those types of legislations, the only people who are going to follow it are going to be the people who follow the law, and the people who follow the law with these things are the ones that you actually need to be there to protect people.
That's a really good point. But what about creating a series of checks? What about using like a Swiss cheese model?
We already have every single tool that we need right now that could prevent or lessen these types of events. So we already have that situation going on.
We're just not
the only thing that we're just not using it correctly, or we're not using it fast enough, or people are afraid of losing their jobs. Like take for example, okay, you've had this one really disaffected kid, or a really mentally unstable one, has guns, whatever it is. We know about it. The FBI knows about it already. Okay, you go into the location, and they haven't committed a crime yet, so you can't really do anything unless they actually do something wrong, which is the problem with that, because you can't minority report people. So you have to wait for that. Now, what you can do, there are things I would imagine, because I'm not in law enforcement, and this is way outside of my area of expertise, but I'm like, well, you could have them being trailed. You could have you could follow them a little bit closer, because they give signs out that they're just like, yeah, they're about to do something.
This all sounds like Band-Aid solutions to me. It sounds like it's too far down in the process. Like, in other words, if you can, in theory, identify these people as potentially problematic, then why can't you stop them from getting assault rifles in their hands?
Because how do you know? Okay, so somebody buys a firearm,
right?
Well, are we going to have people take psychological tests before we buy?
But you just said trailing somebody. So what? It doesn't matter if they own the gun or not.
There's ways that so if you were to have enough people on your police force,
okay, so not Seattle,
so you could have somebody who could trail this person, and then they can get them out immediately if they saw that something, almost like a sting kind of operation.
Scalable.
So no, it's not scalable. So that's the problem with. So and I don't want to seem like I'm unempathetic about it, or that I'm just like, I'm looking at it. I don't like it any more than anybody else does, but there's no way that we're going to be able to prevent these things unless we attack it at the source. A lot of the times we're dealing with mentally abused people.
Sure, but the source is not the person. The source is the weapon.
Beforehand. No, the weapon the weapon doesn't actually shoot itself.
No,
it doesn't shoot itself.
I don't disagree with you, but we have two different problems to solve. It's not one blanket issue. There's a mental health crisis, and there's a gun control issue.
There's not a gun control.
Well, there is a gun control issue because mentally disturbed individuals should not be able to get their hands on ARs.
And how would you implement a psychological exam before the purchase of any firearm?
I'm not suggesting that you implement a psychological exam. I'm asking.
Well, then how else do you do that?
I don't know. But by the way, I love that we saved this for last.
Yeah. So.
My question to you is, if you're saying, "Hey, I can have an officer out there trailing a guy," and you're sort of giving me a heads up that if you see something, say something kind of mentality, like that's as flawed of a premise as what I'm saying is of going and saying, well, don't sell ARs to mentally disturbed people. I mean, you don't have any better tools to find that person and go track them and trail them. You're just waiting not a bad reference, but you're just waiting on a referral, right? So I'm not suggesting that a referral process at the point of sale would solve the problem, but if that's what you're suggesting, once they have the gun, why can't you just bump that care and consideration up the line to before the transaction. In other words, and I don't like the Minority Report thing. So I don't like the idea of going, you know what, I'm a little worried about Joshua. So now I go and I tell the cop, right? And now the cop is trailing you. And now the cop goes, you know what? He doesn't have a gun, but we want to make sure he doesn't get a gun. Like, that's a problem too, because how do you manage that? Now suddenly you're a criminal and not.
These are very, this is a very complicated issue.
So just stop selling AR rifles, period.
No.
Why?
Because the criminals don't follow the law. You're trying to attach a moral. You're trying to create a moralistic infrastructure on somebody who doesn't honor it in the first place.
No, I'm trying to mitigate. No, I'm not. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm looking for mitigation. I'm looking at it and going, because look, you can still do damage with a handgun. So ARs is not an end all be all. When I was in LA, I keep referencing LA. A lot happened when I was in LA. It was not a good time. Down the street from me, okay, there was almost a mass shooting. Now, you won't hear about it because it didn't happen. But a guy showed up with a handgun, an assault rifle, and a knife at the mall, started attacking a woman and her child with the knife, and then pulled out the gun before everybody tackled him. Now, he had a knife, an assault rifle, and a handgun. There's no legislation that's going to stop that guy. You know what I mean? Because if you took the AR rifle off the street, he still has the handgun, he still has the knife. You take the handgun, now it comes down to the person, their mental health, and their intent. Here's the crazy thing. He was like 26, 27 years old, former military. PTSD.
Right.
And I'm like, so again, these aren't black and white issues. There's an issue of a guy that served the country, and we should be returning the favor by helping them. Totally separate issue, right? Separate from the guns, separate from getting their hands on the guns. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, there should be, and I don't know because I don't try to buy guns. I don't know how hard it is to buy a gun in the current environment. I know I can't get it at the Walmart down the street, but like, it shouldn't be that easy to get a gun. It just shouldn't be that easy to get a gun unless you have a license. And I'm not talking about the current structure, but I'm talking about like a pre-vetted license that says, you know what, you have a track record. People, I have a friend of mine that was getting an open carry, and he had to get all sorts of paperwork filled out and recommendations and all these things. Right. So there's a mechanism there. It's not going to be flawless, and it's not going to check off all the boxes, but it can mitigate.
Yeah, but there's also like another fly in the ointment here, which is, okay, so it would be clearer to me based off of what you're saying is that the way that you would do this is that you would need to come up with some sort of psychological evaluation that would be part of the license to purchase a firearm. So even if we forget the fact that sometimes people just get guns through inheritance or their or anything else that has nothing to do with an actual purchase, because again these are lawbreakers. These are not people that honored the law. But let's say, okay, let's take it at face value, and you're just like, okay, you have to have a psychological evaluation for that. Okay, what are going to be the psychological standards for that, and what is going to be the actual methodologies that you're going to be using for that? In one of the examples of this is just like, okay, so if I go in there right now and I say that trans is actually a mental disorder, then if we're in a more progressive time period, or we are dealing with progressive psychologists or anybody that's dealing with it there, then you're telling me that I can't, telling me just off of that one alone. Again, everything else completely sane, completely logical. But if I say something against the current milieu about how we deal with the trans issue, oh, then he's mentally unstable. We can't have that. Or you can go the other way with that. Okay, if you're dealing with an ultra conservative one, and people are just like, well, I just, if you want to call yourself an animal, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to treat you like whatever it is that whatever it is that your pronouns and everything. Yeah, you're weird, so we're going to take you out too. So there are ways to corrupt this in multiple different dimensions with it. So
But
it's not an issue that you can easily solve. The only thing that you could do is you could just deal with the source. So you have to deal with mental issues as they occur. We have to be a much more evolved society. This is the thing that I have been talking about for more than half a decade now. The future of humanity is no longer technology. It is psychology. Psychology is the final frontier. We need to move as quickly as possible into a post-technological society. And what that means is, just like we're inside of a post-industrial society right now, we don't obsess over gears and factories or anything. We shouldn't obsess over the other stuff. We've got so many things that we have to deal with having to deal with our way that we are able to communicate with each other so rapidly and in such a high volume, and also the amount of information that we're consuming, whether or not it's accurate, whether it's helpful, whatever it is. We need to get right up here. We need to be able to have the emotional and mental maturity to deal with living in the rest of the 21st century and beyond that. And that's what you need to focus on. If we're going to deal with these issues, with these shooters and with any of these other isolated incidents, isolated meaning it's done by a mentally disturbed individual, we need to figure out what that is. And I know that isn't sexy. And I know that isn't a quick fix. And I know that it doesn't say, okay, look, we're going to go into Congress. We're going to go ahead and do a law. Okay, we've got 51% approval. It's the law. Okay, good, we're done. No, you're not going to fix it that way. You have to fix it with the people people themselves. We need to make it so that the mental illnesses that people have can be more easily diagnosable. Maybe even a person that comes forward with that. If you're a person that says, we need to be comfortable with the fact that saying, look, okay, I have a problem with this, and I need somebody to fix that. There's multiple ways that you can do it.
The first
it
thing you
all
got to
has
do is
to be
you
through psychology.
got to lift the stigma off of mental health.
Right, and in saying that too, there's also a difficult problem with that. Correct. Because so many people have developed a psychosis around them where they tend to overanalyze themselves. There's this whole entire problem where people are ruminating a lot about like past failures or situations that they're going on through, and we always tend to use psychological terms now. Stuff like, look, okay, if one of my parents die, just like, okay, what do we say? And just say, and I feel down about it. What is the typical response? Well, Josh was depressed. Like, Josh was not depressed. Depression is when your life is going well and you feel bad. That's a mental disconnect.
Right.
No.
Disassociation.
What you mean is that no, Josh was just sad and he's grieving,
experiencing
over
emotions.
He's just experiencing emotions. He's not that way. And then you have so many people right now that are being over diagnosed or diagnosing themselves as having some form of autism.
Oh,
it's always
you just
autism.
read my mind.
Autism.
It's a trend now. that's the autist in me. How disgusting.
Yeah, I'm just like, you really want to give yourself a mental illness that way? I have a friend that was talking to me once, and he has been in some extraordinarily high functioning social environments. There is no conceivable way that he would ever have autism. I've known this guy for years, and when he said, it's just like, well, it's part of my little autism, and I just went off on him right there. I'm like, what do you mean autism? What do you mean about this? Just like, well, I get excited over certain things. You mean like other people get excited with things? Right. Yeah, well, when I go inside of a theme park, I feel like I have to do things in a certain way. Yeah, because you know about it more than the other person that you're dealing with, so you're going to be acting as the tour guide. Right. So that's not autism. Oh, look, well, I feel awkward in social situations. Guess what? So does everyone else.
Yeah, it's called anxiety.
It's not autism.
Yeah. And by the way, I know you didn't mean it this way. Mm-hmm. Autism is not a mental illness.
Correct. You're right.
It is
You're
not
right.
a mental illness.
It's
more a
It's
divergency.
a diagnosable. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you're correct.
I know you didn't mean it that way.
Yeah,
but
right.
we were talking about mental acuity. I guess would be a
Yes,
better way
correct,
to.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. That's fair. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah.
Because it's.
So
I mean, look, I know autistic people that you want to use your term normies. I know autistic people that are more normal than the normies.
Correct. Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But
and much easier to talk to. So.
Definitely not a mental illness. It's there's different layers of autism. But
but it is. But what I mean is, under broadly, it's a psychologically diagnosed condition.
Oh yeah, no, it's a mental. There's a condition.
Yeah. So people and people are doing that to themselves, trying to either legitimate or process their own.
It's like Munchausen syndrome.
With
it's like it's like everybody wants to be a victim.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
Anyway, listen. 5.5 hours. We should probably do a longer show next time.
Yeah.
I thought we would do like 2-3 hours.
Way too short. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't wait so long to do the next episode and it'll be shorter.
That's true. Yeah, that could work.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a healthy 2-hour episode. Imagine.
Yeah, that would be good. Yes, exactly.
For the poor listener.
I don't even have 2-hour conversations anymore.
I don't even want to know the people that are going to listen to the 5.5-hour version.
Yeah. Some people will. You really should split this, though. I mean, good God. You just please make it 2-parter. That way, at least they'll pay attention to something.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will make it 2-parter. Well, I'll tell you, whatever I'm going to do with it, it's not going to be now because I'm going to go take a break.
Right.
But I appreciate you. I know we're doing content, but I actually just really enjoy chatting with you. And it's almost like recording it is just sort of an extra benefit. So I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. You're a super sharp guy. You tell it like it is. And I don't mean to paint you in the conservative light. I know you don't like when I do that. But on paper, they would say that you and I are opposition. Yet,
correct.
Every time I talk to you, I find so little disagreement. And that's why I enjoy the conversation. And I wish more people would reach out and talk to people that maybe they're not supposed to talk to. Not that we're not supposed to talk, but on paper, we're supposed to be butting heads in this world we live in. And I think that.
Well, I enjoy talking with people on the opposite side about things in music, and really it has to do with. And I don't mean to personalize myself or think that I'm more evolved in any particular way about this, but I'm just like you have to be comfortable in your own state. I mean, it like you said the whole entire thing about more gun laws, and under normal situations, like I fundamentally disagree with that. We've already discussed that, but I don't get upset over that because I know I understand that this is just a conversation. Right. We're exploring something, and whatever you say is not going to become law tomorrow. Neither is what I say going to become a law tomorrow. So it doesn't really matter. It's just my viewpoint, your viewpoint, and hopefully in an aggregate of society, we come to a sane compromise or something of that nature.
Or we both walk away with a little enlightenment. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can see your point, and I can see your point, and there you go. You're done.
I didn't bring up anything because I was looking for a fight, and I don't bring up anything for any other reason than I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about it. Not because I'm looking for, and I'm not just speaking to you personally, but what drives me nuts is this echo chamber world that we live in, and everybody wants a yes man. And I would rather you say, I don't agree with you, here's why, and force a new thought. I may still walk away not agreeing with you, but it gives me more context. I'll leave you with this. Sean Ryan did a 3-hour podcast with Gavin Newsom. Did you see it?
Maybe. No, wait, is Sean Ryan the one that's bald, low key, got like all this rim lighting at the bottom?
I think I know like the bar in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know who you're talking about, but I don't think I've seen that episode.
So I know who he is. I don't watch him. And I don't like Gavin Newsom. But I'm in LA, and my ex, who likes Newsom, was like, listen, if you're going to talk shit about him, at least learn a little bit more about the guy so you're equipped. And I was like, you make a really good point. I thought I was going to watch 20 minutes. I watched a whole 3 hours. And I walked away from that interview going, well, I don't dislike Gavin Newsom as much as I did walking into the interview. I still don't care for the man as a leader. But even at the end of the interview, Sean Ryan goes, wow, man, I was wrong about you on so many things. You know, like just hearing him talk like a human being didn't mean that he co-opted me into his policies or anything like that. But it was just like reducing it down to a human level.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do that enough. So.
Yeah. And we would perhaps be a little bit more forgiving, not forgiving, but just we would be able to have a more measured response to others if we understand. It's just like, okay, there are different perspectives that are going through, and they could be very wrong perspectives to even have, but nevertheless, they are that person's, and perhaps your job is just not to vilify them, but also just like, well, no, let's work through this. You said that, and then this is where that could go, and this is what this would do.
Let's explore.
And,
that's the perfect word.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, listen, clearly you're late for the rave going on behind you, so I don't want to hold you up. Joshua L. Harris, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure on this one. It's been wonderful.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Thank you.